Some good news to start the show today. Some not so good news to start the show today. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. That is not the good or the bad news. I guess that's depending, though.
It's news.
It's news, nonetheless. Kevin is back tomorrow from his week-long extravaganza. I don't know where he went. Do you know where he went?
No, he left for vacation when I got back, so we've kind of been playing a little
ships in the night.
Yeah, we played a tag.
So Kevin will be back tomorrow. Good news and bad news. Do you have a preference, Max, on which one I give first? Are you a bad news first, then the good news?
Yeah, let's go bad first. Let's get that out of the way.
All right, the bad news. Brandon Coleman is not practicing today.
That is some bad news.
Limped off the field this weekend. Saturday practice. It was family day for the Commanders. He is not practicing today, so that's bad news.
Did you happen to see any of what happened? Because I know you were
out there. I did not. I did not see what happened.
Because I checked in with my source on all things O-line, and he has yet to respond.
Yeah, I didn't see anything with Brandon Coleman. Admittedly, when I was watching offensive line on Saturday, I was more focused on Connerly, which is something we will get to throughout the course of the show. So that's the bad news. No Brandon Coleman practicing today. This is the team's last practice in Ashburn before they go up to Foxborough, have a joint practice with New England on Wednesday, got walkthrough on Thursday, game on Friday. So really there's two good news, Max. Good news number one, it's game week for the Commanders. We are going to see real football, not meaningful football, but real football. Probably won't see a lot of Jayden Daniels. But we will see real football, and we'll see him in the joint practice, which is exciting. But here's the actual good news that I wanted to start with. Deebo Samuel is practicing, and not just practicing, participating and rolling through 11 on 11s as if nothing had taken place on Saturday that would have stopped him.
Nothing did
from
take
practicing.
Place.
Nothing took place.
It's not supposed to be reported.
According to Deebo, well, that's not how that works, unfortunately. Deebo gave somebody a death stare. I'll play that audio for you in a second. But Deebo injured his finger. I don't know. We never got an official diagnosis. A jammed finger versus a dislocated finger. Obviously, one of those is significantly worse. A dislocated finger takes a little bit longer to recover because you got to pop it back in place. You got to make sure your body's cool with it being popped back in place. It's this whole big situation, right? Whereas a jammed finger sucks. Throw some ice on that bad boy, and you can theoretically use it a day or two later. No big issue, right? I was standing in front of the play that Deebo injured his finger on. It was you know what really sucked about that, Max? It was the third to last play of practice. It was the third to last play of practice. Goal line scenario. The ones are marching down the field. They were not taking on the ones on defense, which is something that we need to talk about, and we will today because it's a little bit of a problem. But they were taking on the seconds and the thirds on defense. Jayden looks for Deebo over the middle. A nice pass breakup by the DB, and then you could just tell immediately something was wrong with the hand. He's holding it. He's shaking it. Comes over to the sideline on the near field, which is like right where me and a collection of other media members were standing. Some expletives were shouted, which is never a good thing.
No.
Never a good thing. Some kids questioned the expletives because, again, it was right in front of the fans. Welcome to football, kids. And then the trainers worked on him a little bit, and there were some more expletives. But he is good to go. He's been catching some passes from Jayden and some 11 on 11s today. So he's good. He is situated. That's good news. You want Deebo healthy, especially if Terry's not out there, because let me tell you, the pickings are slim when it comes to wide receivers. With no Terry and Noah Brown is not practicing today either. Noah Brown hasn't practiced a ton throughout training camp, which is a little unfortunate. Hopefully we get some meaningful Noah Brown reps after the Patriots game this upcoming Friday. I can't imagine that the first practice he will get thrown into is a joint practice. And I can't imagine, just with the way that they ramp guys up, that they're going to say, hey, you haven't practiced at all, go play in a preseason game. So hopefully we see Noah Brown next week. That's not intentionally where I was going to start today. It just so happened that because they are practicing today and we got that information prior to the show that I wanted to go there. I do want to start, though, Max, with something that took place on Friday that we had mentioned on the show. It's very, very important, but it wasn't confirmed on the show. It was a Friday news dump because it happened like at 4:30.
It took a long time.
It took a long time.
The entire show, and then we were like 2.5 hours into a 3-hour show with Doc, and then we got the news.
And then you got the news. I was hoping we were going to get it at like noon on Friday.
It would have been nice.
We got it at 4, and that is that the RFK site is full go for the Commanders. There was a bunch of really it was a bunch of political nonsense. I don't dabble too much into the ins and outs of the politics. I'm not ingrained in that enough to willingly speak on that, but I'm very much ingrained on the stadium coming back to where it is, or to where it was rather, where I guess was kind of supposed to be, and then it wasn't for a little bit, and now it is going back. Washington coming back to RFK is a massive deal. I don't need to tell all of you this. Most of you are aware because most of you grew up going to games at RFK. But it is very big for people in the age bracket of myself, in the age bracket of Max, and some of the other hosts that you will hear on this network on 106.7. It is so nice that we can celebrate and get this stadium back to a place that feels like it's ours.
A home that isn't leaking sewage.
That's not leaking sewage.
It's not collapsing in on itself.
That's not collapsing on Jalen Hurts, although if you wanted to add something for that, I'd be
plus.
down. If you want to collapse on him, that's fine. But it's just nice that you'll be able to have like a central location, but also a location that's easy to get to for everybody.
Accessible by Metro, and you mean I don't have to walk a mile?
I can't tell you. So I had season tickets, my family did, in 2007. I had been to one game prior to that, but my family was like, you know what? We see that you're loving football. We're going to splurge. Let's get some season tickets, right? We have it. We've been on the wait list because that was at the time where there was a wait list. And we got some season tickets. And I remember the horrifying feeling getting off of a jammed Metro, because the Metro going to games is just packed out the wazoo, which is
Sardines
good.
In there.
It's good because people are going to games, or they were at that point. It sucked because I don't like being packed into Metros. Don't like it at 30 years old. Didn't like it at, 2007. I was 12. Didn't like it then. Don't like it now.
Fair.
And then getting off of the Metro and then having to walk a mile to go to the stadium to watch the game. We weren't going to drive. I've since driven after working there, doing the 980 street team back in like 2017. Drove there for a couple of games. I drove there once because I took my then fiance, now wife, to a game last year, although last year's extravaganza was not as terrible as it had been in years past. But getting there sucks. It's tough to get to from the Beltway. I don't know that it'll be much better if you are driving once it gets back to RFK, because the parking situation is not going to be great, but it'll be so much easier to get to from the Metro, where everyone will be encouraged to do so. And it's just going to be so nice to have all of the teams that we cheer for on these stations, and if you are from here, that you cheer for in your day-to-day life, all in the same city. Not 3 teams in D.C., and then one all the way out there in Landover, or if Ted Leonsis had his thrill of it, multiple teams in Virginia, one in D.C., and then one in Maryland. Like, having all of them in one central spot, and then having a new state-of-the-art stadium, and this thing is going to be an absolute doozy. The Commanders are pledging an unprecedented $2.7 billion towards the project. That'll include the 65,000 seat stadium. That'll also host concerts after football season. It'll probably get, I'm a wrestling fan, Max. It'll probably get a big-time WWE event. I mean, they just hosted a 2-night SummerSlam in East Rutherford, where the Giants and the Jets play.
So Tyrese got a very warm welcome.
Tyrese Halliburton did get a warm welcome, but imagine having that here in D.C. Imagine having a Final Four, men's or women's, in D.C. I don't know that a Super Bowl will get here. I think they like to get bigger stadiums, but Roger Goodell knows the history of D.C. and its significance to the NFL. So imagine getting a Super Bowl here in D.C. It's so much easier to have a Super Bowl, regardless of what the stadium was going to look like, even if it did end up in Maryland. Like, it could have been this Jerry World. It could have been, SoFi, just like this new state-of-the-art, never before seen thing that was beautiful from top to bottom. It could have been all of those things. In Landover, that sucks. In DC, it's so much easier to justify holding a Super Bowl here. I was at the Super Bowl, as you know, Max, in New Orleans. Having everything centrally located in one city where you can stay at a hotel that is within reasonable walking distance to the stadium, that is also within reasonable walking distance to the convention center where Media Row was held for the Super Bowl, that is also reasonable walking distance to Bourbon Street, the trifecta of all of the things that you wanted. That is now something that will be readily available in DC. You can stay around the stadium. You can get there easily. So all of the events that are going to come, if you love Taylor Swift, you probably hate Northwest Field because Taylor Swift hates Northwest Field. She ditched it. She said when she's doing her world tour, she's like, I'm not going to Landover. I'm not going to do that. So if you were a Swiftie, you had to take your talents and your money elsewhere.
Philadelphia.
It's going to be so nice to bring all of that money back into DC, but then just have it be an actual like place where you want to be. On top of that, this project is also going to feature 60,000 or 6,000, not 60. Geez Louise. I can't read today, Max.
Be a lot.
6,000 housing units with 1,800 affordable housing units. It'll have retail space and community benefits agreements with $50 million or more. The agreement also includes close to $1 billion in public funds and around $1 billion in tax breaks for the Commanders. So it's a huge Commanders investment into the city. DC will be paying, some of that as well. But compared to a lot of the other stadiums across the NFL, it's going to be a lot more of the Josh Harris group's money than it will be DC's money. All things very, very positive. And I can't wait to see once this is actually up and running, how beautiful it's going to look, what that area is going to look like. Those of you that have been around long enough to know when the Nationals were playing at RFK and then they built this stadium in Southeast that we are like 2 football fields away from, the way that this area was then built up was tremendous because it was now a destination and a place to be. So I'm excited to see how that area around the current RFK site is going to change and allow for more people to live in that area, allow for there to be affordable housing in that area, and just then generally be a place to hang out. Because even if there's not a Nats game, like this Navy Yard area is a nice place to hang out. There's it's not like a pool, but there's like some water activities for kids if you live in the city that are not too far away from us. You can get right up on the water if you're someone like me who likes to run, and I like running up against water, even if the Potomac is a little grody. A lot of grody.
Doesn't change the breeze, though.
Does not change the breeze, though. And it's been a hot summer. We know. Air conditioning last week broken. Hot as hell in here. Summer's hot.
Still broken,
by the way. But it's nice to like Navy Yard is now like an actual place where you can like hang out and have a good time. So I'm excited to see what that area is going to look like at the RFK campus once this stadium is built. And then again, you're getting the team back to DC, and it will feel like it is home again. You guys know this. We all know this. This is a football town first. Even though there's been a large portion of the fan base that because of the Snyder stuff towards the end has grown largely apathetic because of the name change, has grown largely apathetic, having this stadium in DC, state-of-the-art stadium, now building a winner, and then who knows what happens by 2030, 2031, whenever this thing is fully functioning, what the name of the team is then. I think it's going to be very, very fun, a very fun period to be around DC sports when that all comes back. And then not to mention, Max, we got the draft in 2 years. So it is like this long ramp up to getting the Commanders back into DC. You get the draft on the National Mall in 27, and then a couple years later, hopefully with some banners to hang, you get RFK Stadium site in a brand new stadium for all of us to enjoy. All double thumbs up from me. I do want to play something though. So Josh Harris put out an official statement late on Friday after the deal was official. At training camp on Saturday, Dan Quinn talks before practice, and he started his media availability with like a pre-written statement thanking Josh Harris, acknowledging Josh Harris and all of the owners in that group for working hard and doing it the right way of getting RFK back to DC. That was a written statement. At the end of his media availability, we got a little bit more of like Dan Quinn's personality on this. So a question was asked to end the media availability on Saturday about his personal thoughts as a historian of the NFL with the stadium coming back to RFK. And I want you to listen not only to what he's saying, but just how he sounds during this clip.
Remember when the team played in DC? What's it like for you to presumptively be the head coach of this team if and when it returns back to its home?
Yeah, I know these guys have been working incredibly hard, man. Like, this is a lot of big steps, that they're putting together. So as much as I think about down the road, I also think about the work that's going in like right now, and the type of, attitude it takes to stand up and fight for what you want. So I haven't thought much about down the road, but I think at this point, gratitude for Josh and his team to like make this happen. I always have a real appreciation for people that put in the work. And obviously this takes a lot of work to do that. I wish I had coached at RFK. I didn't, but I saw it a lot. And as a, member of this, organization, the DMV. And so for all former Redskins, Commanders, everybody, like, there's that energy about it. So I'll leave it till then. But in this moment, I appreciate the work it takes to get to that next step.
And one thing that I do want to mention while he's talking about this, you can't hear, or you can't see it obviously because we're an audio first medium, but the look on his face and the brightness behind his eyes is one of like really genuine excitement and happiness that they're coming back to RFK.
Smiling ear to ear. That was the first time I tweeted this on Saturday. If you're not following me at the Den Day on Twitter, I tweeted this on Saturday. That was the first time I think I have ever heard Dan Quinn legitimately giddy about something non-Jayden Daniels related. It's very easy to be giddy about like your quarterbacks, especially last year. Like, it was very, very easy. But there was like a genuine excitement, as you mentioned. He was smiling ear to ear. There was like a difference in him answering that from a guy that knows the NFL, that's been around the NFL, that understands the importance of this particular franchise playing in this particular city, versus at the beginning was just a written statement. The written statement was nice. I don't have any, it's not like I didn't want to play the written statement. It was just very basic. It was coach speak. It was PR speak. Well, that second answer that we just played, that was not PR speak. That was like, this is so fun that stadium is going to come back. I don't know if he's going to be the coach by then. I mean, look, man, that's like 5-6 years down the road. Hopefully, if he's still the coach by then, it means things have gone really, really well. And I would like things to go really, really well. But very, very fun stuff and a very, very good thing to be happening. So that's the good stuff. We have a little bit of bad stuff. In order to get to the bad stuff, Max, could you please hit me with what do you got? I think I need to owe Ken Rosenthal a bit of an apology. Earlier this baseball season, when he took to a column and just took the Nats behind the woodshed and lambasted them for how bad they are, how this rebuild is taking forever and they are going nowhere, I took to the microphone 2 days later. I was sitting right on this very show, and I said, I think this is in a little bit of poor taste. The Nationals are moving in the right direction. At that particular point in time, record-wise, they were halfway decent. It was early in the season, but still, they were halfway decent.
They were close to 500.
I was very upset with that article. I was like, man, how could you do this? And boy, hindsight is 2020, because things have certainly changed. Mike Rizzo is not a part of this team anymore. Davey Martinez is not a part of this team anymore. And winning is not really a part of this team anymore. Run scoring was certainly not a part of this team. It took place at their arena, but it was not a part of this team. The Nats were on the wrong side of history this weekend. The Milwaukee Brewers absolutely torched them, just decimated them over a 3-game stretch, breaking Major League Baseball history with 56 hits in 3 games. How is that even a possible number? 56 hits in 3 games. I thought they were going to hang 20 on the Nationals on Sunday. They didn't even have their best pitcher, the Miz. Jacob Mizorowski was supposed to pitch for the Brewers. He did not pitch. I thought it was going to be a closely contested game. The Nats would get their runs. I knew the Brewers were going to get their runs. They were too hot not to. And it was just all Brewers and like no Nationals. And it just didn't stop. Every time you're like, all right, it's 10-2. Maybe we're going to call it off. Bats are going to stop swinging. Oh, nope, there goes another Brewer home run. And it was a fire hose of offense. And the Nationals could do nothing to stop it. 56 runs in 3 games. As I pull up my calculator, Max, and do a little bit of math, that's nearly 19 hits a game.
Why'd you have to add it up?
In baseball. Like, we're not talking like, this isn't college baseball where some things get out of control. This isn't high school baseball where you're getting run ruled when things get out of control. This is Major League Baseball, and they were averaging nearly 19 runs a game. Unbelievably brutal. Brad Lord did his best, I guess. I hope he didn't do his best, to be completely honest. If that was the best, this team has some long-term problems. But he tried. Like, he was out there, and I'm sure he got frustrated, but he wasn't throwing a Caleb Williams temper tantrum on there, right? A temper tantrum, rather.
Great clips coming out of this weekend. But
Great clips for the Bears. Man, their fan base deserves everything they're getting right now. But that was a tough watch for the Nationals, and it does feel like, to an extent, the team is not back at square one, so to speak, with the rebuild. They still have James Wood. They have Mackenzie Gore, at least for a little bit longer. And they do have some good prospects that you would hope, with the right developing coaching staff, that they are going to become something. But, man, it sucks right now. They're like Colorado Rockies bad, it feels like. 56 hits in 3 games. I'm going to just keep reiterating that number because it is an absurd one at that. Nearly 20 hits per game over a 3-game stretch. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Yuck, yuck, yuck. If you watched the game at all yesterday, you could tell the fans were not pleased because the fans were not there. It was as empty as I think I have seen it throughout the course of the season. As many of you know, I do a Sunday show for the BetMGM network, and that's right here. And it's a floor beneath where I'm sitting right now. Generally speaking, when I drive in, the parking lot that we use here is shared for the Nationals game. Generally, when I get in around like 11 or so, 2 hours ahead of game time, not terribly filled. Yeah, not terribly. But you can start to see people coming in. Dog, that parking lot was empty yesterday. When I finished my show, it was in the 7th inning. That parking lot was still empty. So either a lot of people came in and a lot of people left, or nobody came in. And judging by what I was looking at, because I was watching the game, nobody came in. Ugly, ugly, ugly. We'll shift gears back to football. Terry McLaurin was seen hugging Josh Harris on Saturday. Does that mean things are trending in the right direction? We tackle that next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. At the Denton Day on Twitter. Nick Asho at 11. Ben Standig will join at 12 after Commanders practice is over. We will hear from the coordinators as well, so we might play some of Cliff Kingsbury for you. Ben had a really great article on his Substack about Cliff Kingsbury, so we'll get to that as well. But, Max, there was a video that went, we'll say locally viral.
Very locally viral, yes.
Hyper locally viral. It was training camp on Saturday, family day out there. Practice was over. Terry McLaurin walked out. Now, I said this on Friday. I was like, it's going to be a little weird if Terry walks out. Just to see, like, hey, what is the energy going to be like? I didn't anticipate the fans were going to boo him. You're not going to boo him if you're at training camp. The only people that are booing Terry McLaurin are on Twitter. You're on Twitter. You're in the comments of our YouTube section. Like, that's it. Those are the only people that are booing Terry McLaurin. Anyone that is at practice is going to be very happy to see him. But I was curious, if he did come out, how would the energy be? And what would it be like when he walked out? And the reason I said that, Max, because the setup that they have for days when fans are there, you have the two main fields, one of which is close to where the fans are sitting. And that's where, if you have seen any of the stuff on social media that the team has posted with 11-on-11 drills, passing drills, whatever, that's on the near field. That's where all the fans can see. They want that close to the fans. So you get like the element of playing an actual football game by fans, right? And you actually get people to see it. If you went on the far field, you can't see. And what is the point of having fans there if you can't see it? But the way it's set up is there's a pathway that the players will walk out on with their pads. And on the right side is where you have all of these fields and where you have a majority of the fans. On the left side of this path, the path walks right through. On the left side of this path is where what I believe is like VIP or like the super important people. You can't get over there unless you have, I believe, some sort of pass, some sort of tag, lanyard, whatever. So when players walk out, they walk right through there. When Adam Peters walks out to practice, Dan Quinn, they walk right through that path. There were some people that were yelling at Adam Peters when he was walking in and walking out. They were saying, hey, AP, you got to pay Terry McLaurin. Sam Cosmi walked down that path after practice. Sam Cosmi on the PUP list, Terry McLaurin on the PUP list. Sam walks right down that path. After Sam Cosmi walked out there, I was like, all right, let's just pay attention. Is Terry going to walk down this path? If Terry would have walked down that path, it would have erupted like this was pro wrestling. You see your favorite guy coming down the path, huge pop from the audience, everybody goes ballistic.
It's the Vince McMahon gif.
Well, not Vince, Stone Cold.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll go Stone Cold.
I'm thinking of where he's just walking, strutting the shoulders.
Pretty much.
That walk.
Like it is almost set up to like where it looks like a ramp in a pro wrestling show, but it's just a path. Sam Cosmi walks down there. So once Sam Cosmi walks down there, I'm like, all right, where's Terry going to come from? Because at that point, I kind of figured he's probably going to be out here in some capacity or another. Where's he going to walk out from? He did not walk down that path. What he did was take the long way. And the long way is, remember, there's all of the fans on the right, the important people on the left. He walked behind the important people on the left to then come back on what is a third field where like that big green ugly turf one used to be. He walked around that side. And once people saw him, everybody saw him because you start to hear people yell, Terry. Everybody looks in that direction and they see him.
You see one guy point and everybody just kind of follows.
Exactly. So he comes that way. And then that's where you see that video. That's why he almost walks up behind where Jayden Daniels' mom was and where Josh Harris was. And you see him hug Jayden Daniels' mom and then he daps up Josh Harris. All of us as the media were also right there. So that was, to an extent, a somewhat calculated move.
Speaking of calculated moves, what was on the back of Terry's shirt?
So the back of Terry's shirt said team.
Interesting.
He was wearing Commanders branded stuff. So like I'm sure everyone has that variation of the shirt where it says something on the front but the team on the back. I just felt that it was important to point that out on social media because it is starting to feel like there are things that are calculated from Terry and his
noticing.
Camp. Yeah, we are noticing. That's a small detail, right? So it said team on the back. He hugs Jane Daniels' mom. He daps up Josh Harris. And then he goes over and he talks to Zach Ertz for a little bit. And then he goes and talks to his wife. But he talks to his wife on the far. It's the nearest corner, but it's the far corner. So he's not near a lot of the fans, but he's just over there. He's talking to his wife. They probably talk for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then he goes across the field to talk to a few other players. Now, if Terry's out here, I just want to see, again, what is the energy? And from my standpoint, the energy was good. Like it wasn't like he was just, moping around. He wasn't pouting around. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to talk to his wife. He wanted to talk to his teammates. Like through this entire process, if nothing else, I feel like Terry is still Terry. The business side, I'm sure, is frustrating. We have heard various different numbers now that like 33 is what they're asking for, but Washington's offering 27. 30 still seems like if you get it to 30 with good guarantees, the deal is done. That's my perspective of the way I'm viewing it. I would personally have gone 28, 29, but it feels like if the deal is done at 30, just give him 30, give him high guarantees, get this thing over with, and get it done. But here's what I wanted to see, Max. So when Terry walks from the far corner on the near side to where everybody else is and starts talking with another player or two's wife or fiance, girlfriend, whatever. I don't know everyone's relationship.
Other,
yeah, significant other. There's some kids around. He walks across the field. There was a point. I don't know that I've seen anybody tweet this, and I did not have my camera ready for this because I'm not a paparazzi, right? Like I'm not the paparazzi. I'm just letting you know what I saw. He walks across the field. Adam Peters is walking in the same general direction, and I'm like, oh my God, are they about to dap up? Because how crazy would it have been if these two guys hit a clean dap, hug it out right in front of everybody?
Place would have erupted.
They did not do that.
Damn.
They didn't do that. They kind of veered off before they got all that close to each other. And then Terry talked, and then he signed some autographs. I am still of the belief the deal is going to get done. I'm still of the belief that Terry is going to be here. And I have shifted a little bit in my thinking in that I believe it is going to be for $30 million per year.
Probably.
That is kind of where I stand right now. If somebody told Stephen A. Smith that Washington is offering 27 and he wants 33, 30 is the clear meet in the middle point. Now, I don't know how much I believe Stephen A. and his sources. He's not a source guy to me, at least with this organization. But if it's 27 and 33, 30 is the clear meet in the middle point. And that's a reasonable number. And if that's all it's going to take to get it done, you have to get it done. On top of that, the receivers are not very good on this team. Like I'm telling you, if Terry really wanted to make his point known, he would walk out during practice. He's not going to do this because he is a team guy. I know it's crazy. People think he's holding out, that he hates everybody. He's not a team guy. He's still very much a team guy. This was evident by that. He was hanging out with his teammates. He still interacts with them inside the building. I actually think, by the way, that he hugged Josh Harris because Josh Harris is not frequently in the building, which no one really cares about this right now. But that to me is a very positive thing because it felt like other ownership might have been a little too around. I don't think like Josh Harris is too around right now. And that's why Terry dapped him up. But I believe that this deal is going to get done. I believe he wants to be here. I believe the team wants him here. It's just a matter of when. The trade request was business. That's all it was. That's all it ever was.
Just the next logical step.
Well, the logical element may be stripped from that because the logical step would have been to do that first.
Fair.
But it was the final step that the agent had to put any sort of pressure on Adam Peters. But if he was not like this great team guy, he would walk out to practice during practice, stand next to Adam Peters and point to 11 on 11s. Because let me tell you, outside of Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz, there was not a lot of guys when they were going one-on-ones on the 11 on 11 drills. First team offense, first team defense. There was not a lot of guys that could create separation.
No pop.
And it is abysmal.
No
watching
pop from
it
separation. Score leader last year, Luke McCaffrey.
Not a lot. He did make a really good catch in 7-on-7s on Saturday, though. And
not 11 on 11.
Not 11 on 11s, but he made it in front of, again, he made it on the near side, which is where the media stands. And we're kind of spread out, but there were a few of us that were standing right where Luke McCaffrey made that catch. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, he needed that one. Like from a confidence standpoint, he needed that one. So it was nice for Luke to get that. But nah, man, there's not a lot of separation out there outside of guys, Debo and Zach Ertz.
At least the secondary looks good.
Secondary does look good. We got to talk about them because the secondary does legitimately look really good. Like really good. But it's hard to differentiate like how true that is.
Like certain Dan Quinn pass defense is good.
We're not gonna put him in that conversation yet.
Just saying.
I see the direction in which you're going. We're not gonna put him
Just throwing it out
with
there.
a nickname defense yet. If they get there, who knows? But we're not gonna put them there yet.
Fair enough.
But they need Terry McLaurin out there. By the way, Zach Ertz, crazy good at creating separation. For a guy that athletically is not good, he's not at the peak of his career, right? You watch basketball, Max? You a basketball guy?
Every now and again, yeah.
You remember ISO Joe Johnson when Joe Johnson was like 37 years old, but still
Absolutely.
averaging 16 points a game? He was just getting after it.
Of course I
And
do.
you're like, how is this happening? He's not that athletic. He's old, but he's still creating space, getting to
Still
a shot.
bucket.
It's kind of what Zach Ertz is right now. Athletically, he's not at his peak, but the nuances, the awareness, the intelligence, it's the little things that he does to create separation. That guy is legitimately an all-timer for this particular generation.
He's doing the things that the media fawns over Travis Kelce for.
Pretty much just not dating
Sweet.
Taylor Swift.
He's married to Julie Ertz, so he's doing just fine.
He's doing just fine. But it was really nice to see Zach Ertz and the way that he and Jayden still connect really, really well. There might be some bad stuff with the tight end room, but we will get to that. We will get to that later. Nick Asho will join us coming up here in about 20 minutes. If you want to weigh in on Terry, what did you think of the Terry and Josh Harris interaction? Does that leave you with a positive feeling in your mouth? Or was that just hey, they just happened to catch a hug on camera? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your calls on Terry and Josh Harris hugging it out on Saturday when we get back. It's a Kevin Sheehan show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right, here's what's happening on this Monday, August 4th. Commanders camp injury updates. Deebo Samuel is active and practicing today. He had a jammed finger over the weekend. Brandon Coleman out today battling a leg injury. Dan Quinn says they're not ruling out Sam Cosmi's status for week 1. And Terry McLaurin remains on the PUP list with an ankle injury. Over the weekend, Luka Doncic signed a 3-year extension with the Los Angeles Lakers worth $165 million as LA looks towards a future without LeBron James. The Nats, they got smoked in a weekend series against the Brewers. Milwaukee set a new team record for the most hits in a series with 56. They also tied for the third most runs scored in a 3-game span in franchise history with 38. Nats have the day off today. They will take on the Athletics tomorrow on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1. He will be back tomorrow. And Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the streams and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin at the Denton Day on Twitter. Nick Asho joins us in 15 minutes. Get his thoughts on the Commanders' offseason. We're talking Terry McLaurin. Shocking, I know. He had a hug of Josh Harris that went a little viral. I'm expecting to see him today again, Max, after practice. Fans are out there. He seems to come out every time that fans are out there. I have shifted my position slightly in that I think the deal is going to get done. I think that deal is going to be worth $30 million. If they're $6 million apart, theoretically, with the Commanders on 27 and Terry on 33, and we don't know any of those numbers for fact, but it's been reported by various different outlets that it's at least around those two numbers. Getting to 30 should be easy. I know that they're going to potentially want to pay Deebo Samuel next offseason. This is his final year under contract. I know they're going to potentially want to pay Laramie Tunsil next offseason, and they're planning for years to come with the Jayden Daniel contract. They might pay Frankie Louvu next offseason as well. I understand all of those things. But you can very easily put together a contract for Terry for $30 million per year, with a lot of that being front-loaded, and then work to get all those other contracts locked in if you decide to. I don't know that it's for certain that like a guy like Deebo is going to be here next year as well. It'd be great if he is, but we don't know that for certain. Laramie, Tunsil, and Louvu, I feel a little bit better about saying, yeah, those two guys are probably going to get paid next year, next offseason. But you can still get a Terry deal done for $30 million that would get him on the practice field and stop the nonsense, stop the drama and all of it. Because make no mistake about it, Terry knew where the cameras were on Saturday. I don't think he played up to them necessarily, but you don't just hug the owner of the football team or the main owner of the football team when you know a bunch of cameras are on you. And, oh, by the way, all of us media were standing right there. Like right over my shoulder is where that shot was taken about Terry hugging Jayden Daniels' mother and Josh Harris. So he knew that all of us were seeing that. He knew all of us were watching that. I think he wants to be here. They just need to get on the same page. And as I mentioned, it was very, very nice to see him hugging Josh Harris because it kind of looked like that he hadn't seen Josh Harris in a day or two, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is. That's a positive thing. I like that. I don't want my owner just sitting around being too involved in some of the day-to-day operations in Ashburn. I want your thoughts. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your thoughts on Terry hugging Josh Harris. Do you feel like an extension is right around the corner? Feeling a little bit more positive today than we did when we had this conversation on Friday. Cyrus is in Hyattsville. Cyrus, what's going on?
Denton, what's up, man? Real quick, we've had a string of great movies. Have you Fantastic Four, Superman, Sinners, Thunderbolts. Have you gone back to the movies since you had that bad experience with Captain America or no?
So I did. I went and saw Superman 2 weeks ago. It was like the opening day of Fantastic Four, and I was like, man, Superman would probably be empty. And it actually was not empty, but I did see Superman, so I still got to see Fantastic Four.
Gotcha. I'm a movie theater lover. It broke my heart when you said you had a bad experience.
I love them too.
Stop
like it's just
food there.
I need to. I told my wife that same thing when we saw Superman because I was like, why didn't we just pay $50 for food that really wasn't all that good?
Yeah. Anyways, it's such a great sign that to see Terry out there with Josh Harris. It's a reminder of to all of us that went through the Dan Snyder era that the owner is not directly involved in contract negotiations, not sliding in at the last moment to make picks on draft day. It's just such a good sign overall that it's kind of the one thing that's calming me down amidst the the trade thing and how far this is dragging along. It's such a good sign that I can just sort of hang my hat on and relax a little bit. Do I want this to be figured out now? Do I want him to get $30 million? Yes, I do. But here's the thing, and I was actually going to ask you this, Denton. Why can't they front load, maybe like sort of nix the contract for this year, say, hey, you're going to get $30 million for 2 years, so 2025, 2026, and then he'll be off the books by the time Jayden's up for his big contract. Is there any reason why they can't do a very short-term extension 2 years, $60 million, fully guaranteed. What's the downside to that? I've been wondering why that can't happen.
Cyrus, appreciate the call as always, my friend. That's a great question. And I was thinking about this really this morning. They have all the power in the world if they want to front load the contract. They can do that as long as they have the finances to do that. And I would guess because there's 26 different owners that they have the necessary finances to do that. What I was thinking about this morning, though, I can't imagine that Terry would sign a 2-year deal. Just as I'm racking my brain a little bit on what the NFL landscape is going to look like 2 years from now and what he would look like 2 years from now. At that point, he would be 32 years old, and you're not getting a great contract at 32. It doesn't matter how great you play the next 2 years. What I believe is the reason that Terry is going as hard as he is for this is that he realizes this is the last great contract he's going to get. Most guys don't get a great third contract. Their second contract is really, really good. He's in a very unique spot to where his second contract was good. This has the potential to be a great contract. If you sign just a 2-year deal, you're then setting yourself up at 32 years old to have to do this whole process all over again. And you are not going to be fighting for $30 million at that point. You might just be scraping the bottom of the barrel. So I was thinking this morning, I was like, maybe one of the things that is separating the two sides right now is the amount of years on the contract. And Terry could be in a position where he's arguing more for a longer-term deal, a 4-year deal with a lot more financial security than he would be a 2-year deal where you get a lot of that money up front, but then you have to do this whole process again. If he gets a 4-year deal and he plays really well, he'll then be at the point at the end of that 4-year contract where you kind of get like I don't want to say a Ryan Kerrigan deal, so to speak, but that's when the team would take care of you a little bit. It's your veteran deal. Like, hey, you meant so much to this team. You still have some sort of gas in the tank, very similar to what kind of where Santana Moss was when he was playing with Robert in 2012. And those a year or two after that, you've meant a lot to this team. We really want to keep you around for some of the things that you bring to the locker room. Maybe you're not as good at 33, 34 years old as you were at 30. So we'll still give you a little bit of money, but we're not going to give you crazy money for a fourth contract. So maybe there's an element of Terry fighting for more years on the deal for more sustained financial stability there. I was thinking about that this morning, and I was like, maybe he doesn't want a 2-year deal. 2-year might be great because you can argue like, hey, 2 years, $60 million, you get your 30 AAV, but I don't know that you want to. I don't know if I'm a 30-year-old wide receiver looking for a big contract that I would want a shorter deal. This would be the point where I'd want at least 3 years, maybe 4 years, just for that added security. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Dominic is in Tampa. Dominic, what's going on?
Hey, Den. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. So I'm not really reading much into that. Hug with Josh there. I think after all is said and done, yeah, he's gonna sign a deal. I'm still nowhere ever even close ever giving him anything more than $30 million. I'm just not. It's just one of those situations because you said it. You gotta think about future. You gotta pay Lou. I mean, Frankie Luvu is the heart and soul of this defense. There's no denying that. You lose Frankie Luvu on that defense. Okay, who you replace with him? Just 29.5, 30. Call it a day at 3 years, I say, and let's move forward. I mean, it's really getting ridiculous and tiring. Just listening to it every single day. I know you need news and you need stuff to break and whatnot to pass time by, but enough is enough now. Just do what you got to do, get it over with, and let's focus on football.
Dominic, I appreciate it. So here is something that could make the Frankie Luvu situation very similar to Terry. Frankie Luvu is 28 years old. He turns 29 4 days after Terry, which means this time next year, when he will be on the 3rd year of his deal, likely without a bunch of guarantees, looking to get some sort of extension in a very similar spot to what Terry is, he will then be entering his age 30 season. Now, we have seen with defensive ends, there's a lot more longevity with playing that position into your 30s. We've seen that with Von Miller, who's played into 35, now 36 this year with the Commanders, and still been successful at a high level. But Frankie Louvu is going to be going into his age 30 season next year, having these same sorts of conversations with this front office that clearly values age in some sort of capacity. At least that is what we have been led to believe throughout this entire process. Again, there's not a lot that we know. That I think is positive because it means this franchise, this organization isn't giving news to anybody that asks, and not just leaking the way that it has in years past. But Frankie Louvu is going to be in a very similar situation to Terry, albeit he doesn't have the years of goodwill that Terry has built up with this franchise. He will have had 2 at that point, and 2 very good years, hoping that this year is as good as it was last year, and he's playing at an all-pro level, the same way that Terry played at an all-pro level last year. But it's going to be really interesting because when you think about if they're saving the money for Laramie Tunsil and Louvu, which I believe that they are, taking into consideration that they might be giving those 2 guys in particular contracts next year. Tunsil's a little bit older than that, but Trent Williams, Tunsil's 31. He just turned 31, so he'll be entering his age 32 season next year. But we've seen like with Trent Williams has been an all-pro in like the last 3 years at ages 33, 34, 35. So you can play the offensive line position at an older age at a very, very high level still. So I don't think age will be as big of a factor with Tunsil, but Louvu is going to be in the exact same spot that Terry's in now. So that's just something to monitor and keep in the back of your mind. I believe that's playing a bit of a factor here as to why they're not going up to 30, or they haven't gone up to 30 right now, at least that we know of. If they've been offering Terry 30 and he's denying $30 million per year, then that goes more to Terry's agents camp and saying, guys, what are we doing here? Because that is then making things in the situation very, very tough. You will hear from Joe Witt Jr. You will hear from Cliff Kingsbury coming up here in about 25 minutes. But coming up next, my guy Nick Asho is going to jump on with us. We'll get his thoughts on the Commanders and their offseason. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. In 20 minutes, you'll hear something that Joe Witt said at his press availability that has me very, very excited about what element of this defense. Before we get there, though, let's welcome on a good friend of mine. I haven't talked to this guy in a long time, so I'm excited to catch up. Nick Asho is on with us. You'll hear Nick a lot more around here locally. I know he's doing overtime this week on 106.7 The Fan. Nick, what's up, my friend? How are you?
You know, I didn't even have to promote myself. You did it for me. I appreciate that.
The pro's pro over here. That's what I like to call myself.
Yeah, you know, it's good to kind of get out of, as you know, I can say what I say this as best I can. Sometimes you got to be on the sidelines for a little while. It's nice to kind of come out of the shadows and be back with you guys somewhat. So it'll be more as time goes on, for sure.
Speaking of the sidelines, we're all watching this Terry situation unfold from the sidelines. We're not in the game. We don't know how these negotiations are going outside of the random tidbits of information that people will tell us. What has been your perspective on where this is going and how it's gotten to where it's gotten?
This is so expected. Look, I understand that this, and I include myself when I say this, this is a fan base that's scarred from a lot of trauma with this organization for a long, long time. So you're going to see this situation and, you know, let's look at it from a surface level first, because you see so much of these reactions from people all over social media. And I know it's dangerous to start like gauging everything with social media, but let's just look at it for a minute. So many people are frustrated and angry, saying, take care of Terry. Look at what he's been through. Look at how important he's been to this organization. All of those sentiments are true. They're all real. But at the same time, this is that business aspect of sports that people don't like, but it's a reality. It's going to be there. It's always going to exist. And I've called this sort of the contract negotiation checklist. I need a shorter name, but for now, that's the name that I've got for it. We'll work on the branding, you and I, maybe later, and we can come up with something a little bit better. But like, you go through the history of holdouts in the NFL and contract negotiations this time of year, they all look exactly the same. I mean, Micah Parsons basically jumped in the minute Terry decided to ask for a trade. Micah's like, me too. No, I want to trade. I don't want to be here anymore. And like, you just go down the list, and we've seen this every single year. Deebo Samuel was there in 2022. I know Adam Peters wasn't the general manager in San Francisco, but he was a part of that front office. There are steps that are taken that are very standard within this whole path to getting a new contract for star players. And Terry McLaurin is just a part of that now. And, you know, you were talking about this earlier, and it's, you know, again, I do believe there's a little bit of a staging that's going on there, because nothing's real anymore. Everything's fake, and social media is either AI or somebody staged it. You know, the whole seeing Josh Harris and dapping him up and making sure that he's showing everybody, hey, I'm not mad at the organization, but I want to get what I want to get. I don't blame him. And I also don't blame Terry McLaurin for wanting to maximize his income now, right? Like, one, I'll never spend my time blaming an athlete for maximizing their income, period. But we're at that spot where this probably is, and you brought this up too, so I'll give you credit for this. Like, this is probably the last big contract given the age for Terry McLaurin, which is crazy to think. I mean, he's about to turn 30. You know that in the NFL, it's not as much with running backs, but even wide receivers, you start thinking about what's that long-term going to look like. There's a reason why so many star receivers over the years in the NFL have now been traded and then gotten a new deal, because other teams have maybe been willing to pay that money as opposed to the team that actually drafted him. So it's a frustrating situation. I understand why the fan base is upset with the way that it's been. But in the end, I have full confidence that this is going to work itself out, because, one, this organization knows how important he is. And two, they're not looking to rebuild. This is a team now with Super Bowl aspirations already, which is just crazy to think compared to what we were thinking this time last year.
What do you think he's going to get?
I mean, it's over 30. He's definitely getting over 30 million a year. I would be shocked if he doesn't get a number like that. I think the question really becomes, you know, what does the guaranteed money look like? What does the money look at the beginning versus the end of the contract? And what is the length? Like, those are some of the things, because so like, if you're Terry McLaurin, you've got to sort of also think to yourself, what's more important to me? Is it guaranteed money earlier? Is it long-term security, having maybe a longer contract? Like, those are where some of the negotiations and the balance is probably going to have to take place in this. And, you know, from everything we hear, whether it's talking to people or otherwise, that is kind of where we are. There's a million different pieces that have to fit together for this puzzle for both sides to work it out. But, you know, in the end, maximize your income now as much as you can, because let's not act like Terry McLaurin doesn't have leverage with this organization. He's got leverage, and they need him.
Does it bring you comfort? So you mentioned that how scarred this fan base has been over the years. Does it bring you any sort of comfort knowing that they're not handling this anywhere near as poorly as Dallas is with Michael Parsons?
Listen, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and there was a quote from Jerry Jones talking about like maybe wanting to step down from having a say in, player personnel. And I know it's not just him anymore. Let me tell you something. I'm going to cry the day that Jerry Jones no longer makes any financial decisions on the football field for the Dallas Cowboys, because they may actually be run relatively well. I mean, for a team that's had Super Bowl aspirations for as long as they have, yet falling short every single year, it's at least eased the pain in the past of watching what the Commanders have looked like. But now it's obviously different. Listen, Jera loves to handle things exactly the same way. He loves the negotiation. He loves the fight. He loves to go in front of the media. Well, every single year, I just want to make sure that all of our guys are taken care of and we love them. But this is a negotiation. I don't want anybody to lose sleep over this. And you get to the point where it's the same script from Jerry Jones every single year. And I mean, CeeDee Lamb comes out and says that we saw it with Dak Prescott twice. So again, it's more glaring with Dallas because they've had so many big contract negotiations over the last few years, and they're just so like it's scripted to a T with the way Jerry Jones handles it. But it is, again, it's similar with most organizations. With the Bengals, let's say, the Bengals drag that thing out a lot longer. With Washington, we just haven't really been like in this spot as much, right? Because it's mostly been something involving, conversations been around the name or ownership changes or the a new stadium or whatever the case is. Now it's really about stuff going on the field. And we're kind of not used to that, right? It's actually about football for a change. This is still about football. But with Dallas, I hope the dysfunction lasts. Let me tell you something. If Micah Parsons decided he wants to play for Dan Quinn, that's always been the joke, right? Like he'd come over to Washington. The trade's never going to happen. I hope he just plays out his contract and then they just bring him over in a year. That would be unbelievable, just to do everything you can to continue to erode that Dallas defense as much as they've done.
I mean, how crazy would that be if Parsons is wearing, the burgundy and gold, wearing number 11 next year? That would be absolutely insane. What is your level? Nick Asho with me here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin. What's your level of excitement to see Deebo Samuel in this offense?
One, apparently he's not as fat as he used to be, so that's a good start. Good for him. That's how
I'm jealous. Yeah.
Hey, listen, man, you just got married. You've got a little bit more. You got some time you're settling in. You'll get back to it. You'll be fine. But listen, Deebo can be used in so many ways, because like Curtis Samuel years ago was kind of Deebo light to me, right? Where it's like you wanted to use him the way Deebo was used in the 49ers offense in his prime. And it never really worked out with Curtis Samuel. But now having Deebo Samuel for really, a friend of mine's a 49ers fan. I remember when they traded for Deebo, and he's like, hey, thanks for taking our trash. I was like, dude, we gave you a 5th-round pick for a guy that's going to be motivated. This was a great deal for Washington. They can use him in so many different ways. We know that he can, use him out of the slot, use him as just get the key for me with Deebo Samuel, just get the ball in his hands and let him do what he does. Now, do I expect peak Deebo Samuel? I'm not going to put those expectations that high. He's not the number one option. We know Terry McLaurin is going to be the number one option. But for a team that struggled in the run game a lot last year as well, to add the dynamic of Deebo Samuel out of the backfield is a whole other element that they didn't really have consistently necessarily last year. I mean, you did to a point, but Deebo obviously adds another really good layer to that. And if he's back, motivated, and in the shape, I guess every guy heading into this time of year is in the best shape of their life and feeling great. We hear that line every single year. But, if he does kind of live up to those expectations as like the number 2 weapon, let's say, in that offense, I think you've got yourself an offense that adds a little bit more of a dynamic aspect to it, a little bit more creativity. So we hopefully don't see the fall off that we had that stretch last year. Remember, it was like, oh God, is Cliff Kingsbury's offense hitting that wall? Like if you don't have that and you continue to get creative and you use these layers that Deebo Samuel brings to the table, it adds something that continues to keep defenses guessing. Because let's be honest with ourselves, you do worry a little bit. I think everybody does, at least to a point, because we've seen it, a sophomore slump for somebody like Jayden Daniels.
Are you in on the Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt hype, a.k.a. Bill?
Let me tell you something. Every single year, I saw it. I don't remember who wrote this, so I can't give them credit. But every single year, there's sort of the training camp hype. There's the young, unknown guy hype with this organization in somebody that's going to step up and, listen, I'm looking at the Commander's depth chart right now, and he's sitting there, you're behind Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., and you're looking at a running back and going, well, anything's possible for running back drafted in the 7th round, right? Like we've seen it enough in the NFL where it's the case. I try to temper my expectations with anybody, though, that is, hey, looks really good in camp, looks really good in drills, even looks good in a couple of preseason games because we've been there. I want to kind of stay level here, but what I do know is this offense did not have a consistent run game last year. I wanted to see more Chris Rodriguez last year. We saw flashes of Jeremy McNichols last year getting carries, and it was all flashes. If they could find some level of consistency, even if it's just consistent running back rotations, I would love to see that, because the run game was insanely frustrating last year, and I just don't want to see them leaning so much on Jayden again this year and year 2 if they can avoid it.
Nick Asho with me here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You can watch us on YouTube as well. Subscribe to us at the Team 980. Are you excited for the new defense, the revamped defense, even though they didn't make a ton of changes on that defensive line?
Listen, I'm excited for one. The key is that defense actually staying healthy. 2, seeing how all the old guys actually perform. You know what's funny? The addition of Von Miller, this shows you, like, I'm actually glad that I'm not a reporter. I've never been a reporter. So when I was actually at Dulles Airport, I'll never forget this, a few weeks ago. And I was actually flying up to Boston with my wife to visit my brother and his girlfriend. Nobody cares about that story, but that's the reason why I was there. Anyway, walking through the airport when I'm going to my terminal, I'm like, is that Von Miller walking through the airport right now? So I started texting a few people that actually, cover the team and would know. And I was like, is Von Miller scheduled for an interview with the Commanders? Because I swear I just saw him in the airport. Couldn't get a straight answer. Of course, a month later or whatever it was, he ends up signing with the team. And I'm like, hey, I'm glad I didn't have to break that story, because I could have been right, could have been wrong. Look, this defense has at least a lot of Bobby Wagner, what he was able to do for this defense last year. I know he's older and it's not peak Bobby. Bobby Wagner was great. I'm hoping to see something similar that from a Von Miller this year. I'm hoping to see a situation here where your secondary with Marshawn Lattimore is actually consistent and healthy. They've certainly improved. You're right. Did they go out and do a ton on defense? Not necessarily, but there's something to be said for bringing in veterans where if you're pass rush, your defensive line, guys that are getting after the quarterback, let's look at linebackers and let's look at, defensive line kind of as a whole here. If they're rotating guys into different positions and keeping them fresh, if you can get Von Miller for a few snaps rest, and they're utilizing him well with a Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu and go down the board there with some of those guys, this can be a very successful defense, even if they're not, young and at the peak, and it's not the defensive line that had all the hype that we had necessarily years ago for them. So I certainly feel better about it where it was last year. But hey, look, that defense, you go back to especially the playoff game against Detroit, which Detroit struggled turning the ball over in their first preseason game. I know it's preseason, but you look around and go like, hey, this defense certainly has a ceiling it was obviously higher than what we expected last year. And I expect this defense to certainly better than where they were at any point last season.
So I'm optimistic, Nick, as we revert back to the biggest story of the summer so far with Terry. I'm optimistic that a deal gets done by Friday when they have their first preseason game. Do you have a timeline in which you want to see this, or think that this is going to get done?
So I think you're more optimistic than me. I actually thought the trade request was going to come a little bit later. I feel like the timeline's kind of all been moved up a little bit. Having learned over the years when it comes to any contract negotiation, and my contract negotiations have never been at the level that Terry McLaurin's have been, things take longer than you expect. Let's just look at it that way. So again, if you told me that Terry McLaurin signs a deal by the first preseason game, I'd believe it. But if you told me this thing drags out until towards the end of camp, go look at the way the 49ers negotiated stuff before. Again, Adam Peters, part of that front office, he may really dig in. It's a general manager, general managing. He's going to negotiate, because this also sets a tone of, there's 2 tones that you have to set if you're Adam Peters right now in that front office. It's one, you want to show that you take care of your franchise guys. Terry McLaurin, we know how valuable he is to this organization. But 2, you also want to show we're not just going to cave in and just throw all the money at you that you want. This isn't that last payday for players coming in late in their career like it used to be the early stages under Dan Snyder. So you've got to kind of balance both of those worlds a little bit. I don't think this drags into the regular season, but
God,
I would
I hope
actually
not.
be surprised. You're way more optimistic than me. I don't think that this is done by the first preseason game.
If this drags into the regular season, it's going to
I
be a
hope not.
nightmare covering this team. Have you looked into any futures? Do you gamble on teams that you support? I kind of try and stay away from that personally.
So I know you and I have talked about this before in the various betting shows that you and I have done. I very rarely, though I dabbled in the Commanders last year, stay away from teams that I'm emotionally invested in. I know some people like to emotionally hedge. That, to me, you're already letting emotion get involved in your betting. If you want to be a smart bettor, don't let emotion get involved whatsoever. You know me, I'm a big props guy. I'll stick with the props probably for the season a lot. But when it comes to like Commanders win total, do I think that they're like a 10-win team? Yes, of course. The schedule is tougher than where it was last year, but the Eagles take that first place schedule. Again, strength of schedule this time of year means almost nothing because we're looking at either projected win totals or last year. So it means almost nothing. But I tend to stay away from anything serious that's where I'm emotionally invested in that team, because whether you want to say that you're fully unbiased, you're not. There's always an emotion that creeps in there. So give me props during the regular season for this team. I might bet individually on some games, but in terms of like season outlook for them, I'm just staying away, man. Because I was so wrong last year. We all were wrong. Nobody expected them to win 12 games like they did last year. So that's proof right there. It's better to just stay away from anything that involves emotion and money. Bad idea.
Yeah. Bad idea. Good idea is having Nick Asho back in DC. Nick, I appreciate it, my friend.
Good to talk to you, buddy.
That is Nick Asho. You will hear him on 106.7 The Fan later this week. He's good enough to jump on with us here. So we talked a little bit about defense there with Nick. There's something that Joe Witt said that I think could be very, very important moving forward, and it's one of the units that I've been the most impressed with throughout the course of training camp. I'll play that audio for you when we get back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin. Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. At the Denton Day on Twitter. It is coordinator day at the podium. So both Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. speaking today. I wanted to play this bit of audio, but the live stream.
I tried.
Max put in the work. He tried his best. The live stream did not start in time to capture this. It was like the best. It was the best thing.
Start at the
Joe
end
Witt
of the first
said.
question, that the quote that Keim tweeted out, I immediately saw it, was like, I gotta find this. And then Denton said, find it.
You gotta find it. And we just couldn't. But the quote is as follows. Joe Witt Jr. was asked about Trey Amos, and he said, Trey has a good day every day. Now, if you've listened to Joe Witt Jr. cuts, which Kevin plays them on a regular basis, and I, had to cut them a lot last season, he is great at the podium. He's a really good speaker, and he really hypes his guys up a little bit. It's like if Ron Rivera had charisma. That's pretty much what Joe Witt is. Like, he's just a really, really good speaker.
Anytime he speaks, I'm ready to run through a brick wall.
Like, you're like, hey, I'll go play DB right now.
Yeah,
like, I'm ready for it.
Let's do it.
But him praising Trey Amos, I think, is a part of a little bit of a bigger conversation that I have been a little hesitant to have, knowing that Terry isn't practicing. Terry McLaurin not practicing impacts everybody, because that means the DBs are not going up against the team's best wide receiver. However, in what I have seen from the DBs, particularly on Saturday was a great day for the DBs just from a coverage standpoint. I thought there wasn't a lot of turnovers. That's partly because you're facing off against Jayden Daniels, and Jaden's not going to turn the football over. There was one interception, and I don't remember if it was Hartman or Josh Johnson that threw it. I think it was Hartman. It was a tip that Quan Martin was able to come down with. Not a lot of turnovers on Saturday, but in just watching in 11-on-11s, the DBs are good, man. Like, they're really good. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited to see about the joint practice with New England and then elements of the preseason game. Do not expect to see Marshawn Lattimore in the preseason game. Wouldn't expect a ton from Mikey Sanders still if we see him at all. My guess is that preseason game number 1 is going to be used for a lot of the guys that need good quality reps on tape. So your second strings, your third strings,
your Bill Merritts.
But I do, Max, think you will see Trey Amos. Rookie.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Trey Amos right now is we sit here with Joe Witt Jr. saying every day is a good day for Trey. I don't know that it's a shoo-in that he's going to be starting week 1. And I say that not because he's underperformed. He's been really good. But they are 5 guys deep. They have a really good unit. If Marshawn Lattimore is healthy, which I believe him to be, he starts on one side. Another guy that really stood out to me on Saturday in particular was Jonathan Jones on the outside, a near 10-year vet in the NFL.
A pilot.
Has Super Bowl experience in playing with New England, and he is the latest mercenary on defense. 1-year deal. I got to take advantage of it, see if I can get some more money. But he's played really, really well. Now, again, it's tough to judge them based off of what they do in practice against one another because, with respect, guys like KJ Osborne don't separate the same way Terry does. Guys like Chris Moore don't separate the same way that Terry does. Ja'Cory Brooks, Jalen Lane, like you name it. Outside of Debo and Zach Ertz,
there's also stuff like that they're sitting on and stuff like that. You see route combos, you see lineups.
You get comfortable and you can kind of scope them out a little bit.
Cheat a little bit more.
But there is just the coverage there has been really, really strong. And I was talking to Stanford Steve. Stanford Steve was out there on Saturday.
Really?
So I was talking to him. He and I were just kind of sitting over there. He was looking at Connerly. I was watching 31 because I was just interested. He stuck out to me a couple of times, and I was like, I should probably keep watching him as he gets rotated on. And then come to the conclusion, you got 5 guys out there that you feel really confident with. Noah I was DB3 at the end of last year, and I felt pretty good about Noah I being DB3. I knew this year he was going to fall at least a little bit down the ladder. I would say that right now Noah I is DB5. You have the 4 other guys, Jonathan Jones, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey, and Trey Amos, and then you have Noah I. If I felt good about him at DB3 last year, He's a great DB5.
You know what's great about this conversation that we're having, Denton?
What's
Unofficial depth chart comes out a little bit later today.
I am begging them to drop this before the end of the show. I don't know when it's going to come out.
Need
it's
it.
probably going to come out at like 3 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
I'm begging them. Like, I know practice is done. The coordinators have each spoken. You probably had an idea of what that unofficial depth chart was looking like before practice. I am begging them to drop this so we can examine it before we get out of here today, because I want to see where certain guys land, particularly the defensive backs, as to who is going to be the projected unofficial starter on the outside across from Marshawn Lattimore. Because like Lattimore being CB1 is guaranteed at this point. Like, that is a lock. He is the best. When he is playing at his best, he is the best CB1. You have 4 other guys, really 3 other guys. I don't think that Noah I is going to be starting outside. But you have 3 other guys that realistically could all play outside, because Jonathan Jones I'd feel comfortable with playing outside. If Trey Amos is balling to the point where they are comfortable putting him outside, then I feel really good about him playing outside with Mikey on the slot, knowing that you're going to get all 3 of those guys on basically every single down, on probably 80%, 90% of the snaps. There will be a couple packages where you're in like goal line and you're like, hey, let's get the DBs out of here. We'll just have 2, and then we're going to throw a bunch of the big bodies, the large humans in there. So you'll get those obviously throughout the course of the season, but you know that you're going to get a large amount of nickel package and then potentially a good amount of dime package. Yeah. So if you get those 4 guys with Sandra Still, Lattimore, Jonathan Jones, and Trey Amos out there, that's a pretty darn good group. And I'm really excited to see how they go and match up against New England, where you're going to be hitting for real and you're going to be seeing route concepts that you are not seeing on a daily basis, going up against an offense that you do not see on a daily basis. Ooh. What is that communication going to look like? I am hoping and anticipating that a guy like Stephon Diggs is going to be ready to practice and practicing in full for New England. So, sometimes in just these one-day joint practices, they'll hold veterans out. I don't want to hold veterans out. I want to see Diggs go up against these DBs. I want to see
Kyle Williams.
I want to see Kyle Williams go up against these DBs, although admittedly, they should eat Kyle Williams for breakfast.
You would hope.
Diggs is a little different because Diggs, very similarly to Zach Ertz, has certain nuances, while athleticism might not be peak anymore, especially coming off of a massive knee injury. He still has the nuances of creating separation with some little things, understanding how to run routes, basically working the DB to get to a position where he always has leverage. So there are a lot of things that a veteran-laden wide receiver like Stephon Diggs would do really, really well. And you would learn a lot if you're Trey Amos going up against a guy like a Stephon Diggs. How is Mikey Sanders still going to go up against a guy like a Stephon Diggs? So I want to see them work against an offense that they are not familiar with. But everything that I've seen from the DBs leaves me feeling pretty darn good about this position group going into 2025 and going into week 1 against New York. And I think in turn, what happens when you have a great defensive backfield is it make everybody's life easier in front of them, specifically the defensive line. While no one has been on the defensive line an absolute stud, so to speak, you've seen some really flash plays from guys like a Johnny Newton, like a Javon Kinlaw. I saw Javon Kinlaw up close and personal, Max, for the
as big as the
first time. He is without question one of the 4 largest human beings I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
So I had seen him before in practice, but I was on the field, for the family day element of it, and seeing him in pads standing next to like other humans. And, part of that is because family day, you do not see like the largest human beings in the world. It's a lot of kids out there. It's a lot
of size comparisons.
Right. There's a lot of big difference in the size, but just looking at him turning over after I'm watching Terry, right? And I turn over and I see Javon Kinlaw and I'm like, oh my God, like that guy's built like Thor.
Who's this monster?
I was like, this guy is a legitimate monster. And all of a sudden, while I still am a little skeptical of the contract that they gave him, just because the contract was way over market value, as we love talking about, we love market value.
We
But
do.
that contract was a little high. I don't think anyone else was going to pay Javon Kinlaw $15 a year. They decide to do that, and then you see him, and you're like, all right, I kind of get it. You know what? Maybe he hasn't had the most amount of success in New York, but New York sucks. They're not
the
good.
Jets are the Jets.
We're much better. We have a much better operation. Like we got hurt in San Francisco. That's why it didn't work out there. And then he wanted to go play with Robert Saleh. That was just he was in a bad spot. He's going to be so much better here. I'm excited to see how they rotate guys, because I think Deron Payne's going to have a pretty decent season this year. I'm really excited for Johnny Newton, and that trio of guys on the defensive tackle rotation, I think is going to make life very, very difficult for some opposing offensive lines. And I think that is helped in large part if you have a great defensive backfield. It's funny. So you made a comment earlier, and I'm thinking it. Everyone is thinking it. You're like, hey, Dan Quinn, you want to rebuild the LOB, the Legion of Boom defense?
I never said that.
I did,
but
I'm thinking it. I'm looking at it saying like, hey, like, what's up?
I'm seeing shades.
That Dallas defense, not last year, obviously, but 2 years ago, that was a turnover machine. Good. There were some similarities, not quite Legion of Boom, obviously, but it is important to point out that the Legion of Boom was a defensive backfield, great defense first. Bobby Wagner was really good, but he was still very young in his career. That defense was led by the defensive backfield. So it is capable to have a really good defense that is defensive backfield first. And I love Quan Martin, especially a healthy Quan Martin. I like Mikey the same way that all you like Mikey. If what we're hearing about Trey Amos and what we're seeing about Trey Amos looks the part against other teams, you should be starting to get a little giddy. You should be starting to feel a certain kind of way that's all positive. Because if they just start to create some turnovers, the worst thing, I don't care who is playing wide receiver. I want it to be Terry. I don't care who's playing wide receiver. The worst thing that you can do as an opposing team is give Jayden Daniels a short field. You give Jayden Daniels a short field, he is going to put points up on the board. And if this defense can start to create some turnovers and they got guys to play the ball really well, Trey Amos plays the ball the way that Ron Rivera thought Emmanuel Forbes was going to play the ball. He's just a lot better at actually playing football too, and understands the coverages and understands how to play physical defense when needed at the line of scrimmage, but can also drop back and is not just getting played the same way that Emmanuel Forbes would oftentimes get played like a fiddle. So there's some really good things to be excited about on this defense. I'm excited to see what Wednesday is going to look like. We'll have obviously a bunch of people out there, or at least some people out there. I'm sure Kevin is going to be excited about that as well. He's back tomorrow, by the way. So Kevin will be back tomorrow. Right now, it's the final day of Denton Day in for Kevin Sheehan. I want to play a little bit of what Cliff Kingsbury said. Plus, Ben Standig wrote a great article about the mental preparation and the grind of Cliff Kingsbury that really speaks to why the offense was so good last year and why we should be really excited about what the offense is going to look like this upcoming season. We'll kind of touch on that a little bit before Ben joins us at 12 when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980.
All right, here's what's happening on Monday, August 4th. Commanders camp injury updates. Deebo Samuel is active and practicing today with a jammed finger. Brandon Coleman out today, battling leg injury. He'll probably be out for the rest of this week. Dan Quinn says they are not ruling out Sam Cosmi's status for week 1. And Terry McLaurin remains on the PUP list with an ankle injury. Over the weekend, Luka Doncic signed a 3-year extension with the Los Angeles Lakers worth $165 million as LA looks towards the future without LeBron James. The Nats, they got smoked in a weekend series against the Brewers. Milwaukee set a new team record for the most hits in a series with 56. That's 19 per game. They also tied the third most runs scored for a 3-game span in franchise history with 38. The Nats have the day off today. They will get going against the Athletics tomorrow on 106.7 The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
I'm trying to see if Terry McLaurin is out there at practice. I don't know if you've seen anything, Max.
I have not seen any reports. John Kine did tweet about 2 minutes ago that Jayden Daniels appears to be popular.
Jayden Daniels, according to Nikki Javala, signed a 3-month-old.
Oh, you know what? That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, that is. I haven't seen that before.
No.
What do you even do with that?
Because
Because you're not tattooing it on the kid.
Well, where do you sign the kid? First of all, where on the kid's body do you sign?
Let me
the
see.
child?
I think I just saw a video.
Is
so
there?
Let me see.
Ooh, because there's only so much surface area you can cover on a baby.
Right. There's not a lot. At 3 months, not massive.
Especially out, in this summer heat, they're probably not very bundled up. So you might get, a little bit more space on the arm or the legs or the feet.
Oh,
but,
it's on the baby's clothing.
okay. That, is it a jersey or is it just like baby clothes?
It's like just baby clothes, like a little onesie.
All right,
not footies. It's too hot for footies, although it is actually very nice outside.
It's so nice
today. But it's just a onesie.
Is it Commanders themed?
It is. It has the
Hell
W's
yes.
all
right,
over.
get it framed.
Well, it has had autographs from Jayden Daniels, London Fletcher, and Marshawn Lattimore.
All right, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So that I guess makes a little bit more sense when you just see the headline of Jayden Daniels signs a child. He would not be the first person that has signed a baby before, but it is an odd experience, I would imagine, to sign a child.
There are very few professional athetes who fall into the sign my baby category. Jayden Daniels is one of them. And it's very
few.
nice that we have one of those.
It is very nice because I cannot think of a player in the last 25 years that I would say is like sign my child level of important.
I wouldn't even
maybe
7-year-old
Robert
would
in
have handed the kid
2000
over to Sean Taylor.
Maybe Robert in 2012
Yeah.
because they did all of like that change thing. Remember they had all these graphics like the
I do remember
Obama-esque
that.
change, but it was Robert's face instead. So maybe Robert in 2012, but like at least with Jayden, it's earned. They're wanting him to
Earned, not
sign the
given.
child because he actually won and got them to an NFC championship where Robert had a PR team ready before he even stepped foot on the practice field here. And to at least his credit, he lived up to it for at least one singular year. Then it kind of got all over the place. Ben Standig's going to join us in 15 minutes. If you're not subscribed to Ben Standig's Substack, I would encourage you to do so. He put out a really good article, or a really good story, rather, on Cliff Kingsbury and how this offense could evolve in year number 2, but also giving you a little bit of insight into the way that Cliff Kingsbury operates. And he is a little maniacal in the best way possible when it comes to football. I don't know, not that I care, but I'm going to sound like such an idiot for saying this. I'm going to say it anyway. I don't know that he's in a relationship, so he's married to the game right now.
Sure.
Despite the fact that everyone and their mother thinks he's hot. I don't know that he's in a relationship. He's married to the game right now. Also, seeing him at practice is like kind of funny because that man is in full attire. Long sleeves,
kitted up,
sweats, big hat on. It does not mean that dude is like, hey, I am not, my skin ain't touching the sun.
The darkest Ray-Bans I've ever seen.
He's like, these UV rays are not playing around. And I can't fault him.
As a pale fella, I completely understand where he's coming from.
These UVs are in fact not playing around. But Ben put in some really good stuff on Cliff's preparation, what it looks like. And he made this point of, Cliff has spent the entire offseason watching every offensive snap. Now you hear that on the surface and you're like, well, yeah, he's watching his own team. No.
No.
That is not what I said. I said he watched every offensive snap from across the entire NFL. Like, it's a maniacal level of work, but it's how you stay constantly ahead of the trends in the NFL. The NFL is, in every essence of the word, a very, very trendy product. What you see one team do is often imitated and duplicated by opposing teams. They see it on tape for a year, not even a year. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is. They see it, and then they take it. In fact, I mentioned Robert Griffin. That 2012 Redskins team is a perfect example of that. They ran the RPO the read option that had not really been done before at the NFL level. And to the credit of Robert, he did that offense better than anybody. San Francisco saw it, looked at what they had with Colin Kaepernick once Alex Smith got hurt. They implemented their own version of the RPO, and then the read option, not the RPO, but they implemented their version of the read option, and then Colin Kaepernick took them to a Super Bowl, where they were a play away from beating that Baltimore Ravens team in 2012. You see what other teams are doing, you then create your spin on it, and then you make it your own. So Cliff taking the time to sit down this offseason and watching every single offensive snap from every single NFL team, I think is very, very fascinating, because you take into consideration that there were a lot of teams in the NFL that had offensively, at least at the skill position, a lot more talent than Washington did. It was Jayden, it was Terry, it was Ertz, and then it was a bunch of dudes, man. And, I liked De'Ami Brown at the end of the year. De'Ami was not a number 2. Maybe he's a good number 3. Noah Brown was a good number 2 for a little bit prior to him getting hurt. But there was, Jayden was still young for a majority of last season. And there was a lot of throws that at the beginning of the year were not his favorite to make. And then by the end of the year, he had no issue throwing over the middle and having a lot of success doing so. That's kind of where that relationship with Zach Ertz really developed, because they were throwing over the middle more frequently. So Cliff sitting down to watch every single snap makes me think, Max, you're going to see a lot more creativity. And then when you take in adding Deebo Samuel, adding Laramie Tunsil, it's not like Laramie's going to be catching passes, but you feel way more confident about the blind side of your quarterback with a guy like Laramie Tunsil, but also he's watching run plays. And the addition of Laramie Tunsil on the left, then kicking Brandon Coleman to guard, once he's healthy. He did not practice today, but I don't think this is going to be a long-term issue. Once he's healthy, utilizing the athleticism that Brandon Coleman has, I think really opens up space in the run game. And then you add Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who's still a rookie. Yes, we'll kind of get a much better feel for him based off of what we see in preseason game number 1 on Friday. They're doing contact at practice in Ashburn, but they're not tackling. They're not bringing guys to the ground in 11-on-11. It's a smack, a wrap, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thud and wrap.
Which, a part of me is like, I want to see tackling. I think it's better for guys to be tackling, but then a part of me is like, let's not get anybody hurt. God forbid you try and bring a guy down in practice trying to show off and you hip drop him and then you break a guy's leg, which I believe happened in either was it Miami or it happened somewhere in the NFL.
See,
this
the Raiders came to mind for me, but I know it did happen on a hip drop tackle very recently. I think Mike Florio tweeted about it, but I'm not 100% sure, because we know how Mike Florio loves to talk about hip drop tackles.
He does. Mike Florio is a big anti-hip drop guy, which, to be fair, I'm a big anti-hip drop guy too, because you see these sorts of things, but God forbid that happens in practice.
It was the Colts.
It was the Colts. All right. So it was the Colts. They had a guy that got injured because they're taking guys to the ground and it ends up being a hip drop. But in seeing what Bill can add to this offense, everybody's raved about him, his vision, his ability to cut, to attack the hole, some things that we had some issues with Brian Robinson not doing last year. So there are a lot of changes that Cliff could make to this that really add an explosivity to the offense that for large parts existed because of number 5, but number 5 had to do a lot of the work, whereas now it's a lot easier to get more people involved because you're more talented on offense. And that really opens the door for what 2025 could look like for this Commanders offense, but then also just for Jayden himself as he goes into year number 2. I think the idea of a sophomore slump is not as frequent in 2025 as it has been in years past, especially for a guy like Jayden, who has done some stuff off of the field this summer and this offseason, but he's really been about football. If you talk to him, if you ask about it, he's really grinding tape during the offseason, and he's really trying to get better for year number 2. This dude is football first, second, third, and fourth, and then he can get into some other stuff. Shoes, pairs, fashion week, women, what have you, but he's football first, second, third, and fourth. Here's what Cliff said. This was in Ben Standig's article. Here's what Cliff said about Jayden in year number 2. He said, quote, "He's thinking less, playing faster, letting his natural gifts take over." That's what Cliff said in June. That's what we want to see. I expect him to take a big jump. He continued saying, when you have a player like that, and he's the one telling me what time to be there, that's a special deal. We have heard all of these stories about Jayden getting there insanely early.
Before the sun even thinks about
Dan
coming
Quinn
up.
said, as you mentioned last week, he sees Jayden walking off of the field as the sun is rising. If you are an early bird, I'm an early bird. If you're an early bird, the sun is usually rising at around 5:30, 5:35 here in the DC area, the DMV area. If he's walking off of that field when the sun is rising, he's been out there for a little bit.
For at least an hour.
For at least 30 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour, right? Going over plays, simulating some things, getting his footwork right. And if he's telling Cliff, hey, I need you here at this time so we can work on some things, that's a really, really positive sign, right? So
Jayden's getting a lot more vocal, too.
He is so much more comfortable.
Yeah.
In the huddle. He's so much more comfortable on the sideline. He's so much more comfortable on media tours or media hits. Like he's coming into his personality. And I never felt necessarily that he was uncomfortable last year, but you can just see there's a bit more of a relaxation in it. And because there's a bit more of a relaxation, that gets to the first part of this quote. He's not thinking as much.
Mm-hmm.
He's just allowing the game to happen and then using his natural instincts and his natural gifts to then play. And how many times, like this was the biggest issue with Carson Wentz, is that Carson Wentz would think too much. And when you started thinking too much, you're like, well, he's lost. He's losing it. He's doing too much upstairs when you need to just let the game take over and let you as a natural gifted quarterback allow your instincts to take over. Carson Wentz never did that. He would do too much thinking. Jayden just being a natural and thinking less, not getting in his own head and reacting, responding, that to me is incredibly positive. So the fact that Cliff is saying this is what's going on here, I think is a really, really good sign. And then I mentioned that he went through every single offensive snap. This is what Ben's article said. It says, Commanders offensive coordinator didn't go full airplane mode after the season. Sure, he disappeared to an unknown European coastlines without his football playbook in tow.
My guess is Croatia.
Must be nice. Yeah. Cliff ain't going to where everybody else is going. I'll tell you that. But Kingsbury also pondered new ways to deploy electric quarterback Jayden Daniels and maintain his annual tradition of watching every offensive snap from every NFL team, every single one. Get a life, you might say. Kingsbury would counter and say, this is the life. That man is married to the game. That is a level of grind that we have not had here. And when we talk about ways that this offense can mature in year number 2, can develop in year number 2, when you have a guy in Cliff that is as dedicated as that, a guy in Jayden who, despite all of the success in 2025, he still gets in early. Like, he very easily could be like, hey, we got to the NFC Championship game. If I was getting in at 5 last year, I'm going to get in at 5:30. Just to let a little bit of complacency gets you off your little routine, and you start to feel a little bit of a way about yourself. You're puffing up your ego a little bit. That does not seem to be the case. Nothing has changed about the way that they are approaching the 2025 season from the way they approach the 2024 season, albeit with just a little bit more of a comfortability on what the offense is trying to do and what Washington is trying to do in 2025. I look at these quotes, Max, and I laugh at the trend, this topic that kind of dominated airwaves last year of the Cliff. They had that 2-game stretch against Philadelphia, 3-game stretch against Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Dallas.
There's a lot of talk before that Titans game.
And there was a lot of bad offense. I mean, the first half against Dallas was awful. It was probably the worst half of football they played the entire season. They couldn't do anything against that defense. And everyone's like, it's the Cliff. He did this with Kyler in Arizona. He did this with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, not taking into consideration that one, at Texas Tech and at college, the college level, the first 4 games of your season are against nobodies, and then you play like good teams in the final remaining 8 games of your season, and then not taking into consideration in Arizona that your quarterback can't see over the line of scrimmage. That's a pretty big deal. Jayden can see over the line of scrimmage. It was not a Cliff. It was that his quarterback literally could not see, and defenses realized if I put my hands up, his life gets exponentially more difficult because he already can't see over me. And then once my hands are raised, he really can't see over my outstretched hands because he's measured at 5'9", but he's really probably like 5'7". You get a tall quarterback that is grinding the way that Jayden is grinding, things are going to look really, really good in the year 2025. We'll get some more insight on this article. Ben Standig joins us next. Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, joins us in 35 minutes. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Sheehan is back tomorrow. I'm sure he is going to have a lot to get off his chest about the Terry McLaurin trade request. But we're not focusing on that right this instant. Training camp today, final day of practice in Ashburn before the team is out in Foxborough, and then getting ready for the preseason game on Friday. With us now from Ashburn is our guy, Ben Standig. He joins us each and every Monday and Friday, and probably a few more times this week with Kevin here on the Sheehan Show. If you're not subscribed to his Substack, go do that. You can find a link on his Twitter page and subscribe to his podcast, Last Man Standing. Ben, how was practice? How did everybody look out there today?
Denton, they're going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point. Yeah, you know, I mean, it was another day. A couple guys had some moments, but you know, I think I can only speak for myself or the media, but I think we're all ready to get to Foxborough because this has been, you know, you get this deep into camp, it gets a bit repetitive. It's the same thing, you know, over and over. I think we want to see them going up against different people. I know they want to. The coaches want to. So, you know, there was some good stuff today. Trey Amos had a couple of nice plays. You know, Jayden obviously did Jayden things. But yeah, I think to me this is sort of the you know, the necessary step to get to Wednesday when they do the joint practice.
What did you think about Jayden Daniels signing a kid? Did you see that?
I was standing right there. Yeah. No, it was, you know, he doesn't have a chance every day to stop and sign because they got to get in the building and do whatever. But like he did today, he went, you know, kind of all down the line of people. And yeah, all of a sudden there was a baby, I think like a 2 or 3 month old. So yeah, why not? Why not?
What did Debo look like? You know, he injured his finger on Saturday's practice. Everything looked good for him out there today.
Yeah, I didn't see anything noticeable at all. You know, when he got hurt, somebody there who's played football before was guessing that it might be a dislocated finger, and you know, it's painful, but you know that happens in sports. Even happened to me once, and you know, I'm not really an athlete, so you know, they popped it back in. And even after practice, he was fine. I saw him walking the other day after practice, holding his little kid's hand. So you know, he seemed fine, no big deal. And he, you know, once again, he and Jayden connected on a nice play down the field. That's been a pretty regular staple here in these practices so far.
Did we get a real update on Brandon Coleman? I know he wasn't out there today, but was there anything that they gave us as to what the injury was?
No, you know, they don't have to tell us anything when it comes to injuries. I think on Wednesday, Dan Quinn is going to give us a little more details about some guys who aren't going to practice or didn't make the trip. I'm going to guess Coleman's not going to make the trip, you know, just one out of precaution. And, you know, if he wasn't even able to go today, I don't know, you want him to go in what's probably going to be more physical situation with another team. So don't know for sure. Can't speculate as to how bad, but you know, if they're not saying, oh, he's going to be out week, I think if he was going to be out weeks, they would probably say something. So at the moment, I guess it's sort of in the day-to-day range, but yeah, we don't quite know much at this point.
Is number 17 going to make the trip to Foxborough just to be around the guys?
I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. Today was, you know, I believe you've been out here when Terry made an appearance after practice. He has done that every day. I think 5 practices. He didn't today. Today was the first time we did not see him. I don't know that means anything, but yeah, we didn't see him. I mean, I don't know, man. I like, is there value in him being there? Sure, of course. But if you're not going to, you know, be part of the process, I don't know I don't know what he's going for. So I really have no idea how that's going to work. I'm going to guess no, but I really don't know the plan for that situation.
So Dan Quinn was asked today about a timetable for Terry and said they're still working on some stuff, deceleration cuts. You know, he gave legitimate reasons as to why Terry might potentially not be on the field. If they don't get an extension done, at what point do we actually see him back on the field?
Well, this whole ankle injury situation, I mean, I don't know. Something tells me if they somehow today signed an extension, that we'd see him on New England on the field Wednesday. So I don't know what to make of this injury. They're acting like it's a thing, but I don't know. I don't know that it's a thing. So he is technically on the PUP list, but again, I imagine that should he get the deal done, he would be activated. I think for me, and I remember I had before camp started, I had Adam Schefter on my podcast, and he was hardly moved by any of this because he's seen so many of these over the years. He was like, look, if he doesn't get, if they get through 2 preseason games and he's not there, then I think it's kind of time to worry. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. When we get to past the Bengals on that Monday night and we get to the Ravens joint practice in a game, if Terry is not around, maybe he's not playing the game or but like if he's not done by then, I think that's when you have to really question where this thing is going and which side is potentially going to budge to get a deal done. But it's been to say it's not been surprising that we've reached this point would be, I think, a fib by anybody. So it's weird. It doesn't seem like it should be this complicated, and yet here we are.
Were you surprised? Because all of us were standing there when Terry went and hugged Josh Harris. Were you surprised when he went over to him and dapped him up and hugged him?
So, I think like when we have these notions of these holdouts or whatever, that there's this like animosity, right, that's going on. I remember, and I've talked about this, I think even here with you guys, that like when he did the that bit a couple weeks ago at the Eastern Motors after filming a commercial, and he talked to us for like 30 minutes. If you watch the film of that, you're like, boy, he's a little angry or frustrated here. But before and after, totally normal, totally same guy. He doesn't have, I don't really feel like he's got like an angry bone in his body kind of, but hey, he felt he needed to stand up. So I think that his instinct is that's who he is, to be the social guy, the guy who is, friendly to all. And, Josh Harris is somebody that he is genuinely friendly with. I mean, it wasn't a long embrace by any stretch, but it was something. And it's odd, but again, it's only odd because it's not odd because of the person. It's just odd a little because of the circumstances. And again, I think there eventually something gets worked out. I mean, I know he requested a trade. It feels sort of negotiating playbook-ish more than it feels like, the heck with this, I'm never playing for these guys again.
Ben Standig with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. You can find his podcast, The Last Man Standing Podcast, whatever it is that you get your podcast, and you can now catch all of his Commanders coverage on his Substack. The link is in his Twitter at Ben Standig. So speaking of your Substack, you wrote a really good piece on Cliff Kingsbury and his offseason, the way that he grinds. What were some of those things that really stood out to you the most when you were putting this piece together?
Yeah, you always hear guys watch tape, your own tape, others. Okay, sure, I get that. He says he watches every snap of every team in the league. Every snap. I was like, come on. Every snap? He's like, yeah, every snap. He even said I didn't put this in there, but like he'll also watch like the top like 10 or so college offenses just to get a sense of what's out there. And look, I think they all to some degree crib from each other, or they want to feel what are new ways to improve what I already do. And clearly that says a lot, but it's also like we have a team there sort of
Hold up, we gotta get it. We'll see if we can get him back, Max. We are just completely losing him on the phone there. It sounded like he was underwater. I can't imagine he went swimming when he was on the phone with us, but we completely lost him there. So we'll try and get Ben back, because I do want to hear what he was saying about that, because the watching of the college offenses, if that's what brought the read option from to DC for Robert, was that Shanahan was watching college offenses and seeing there's a lot of college teams doing this. How can we implement that? Not that I think they're going to start running a read option with Jayden, but there are some things that Ohio State could do that you could take away from that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin were doing, that Steve Sarkisian was doing as well. Like, there are some things that are being done at the college level that with a guy as talented as Jayden, you could very easily utilize. All right. Sorry, Ben, we had lost you there for a little bit. We lost you as you were talking about some of the stuff that he does watching college offenses as well.
Yeah, no, just that, he dives in to watching everything. And look, these coaches all to some degree crib off each other or find, hey, what's a different way to do what I'm doing and do it better or be a little trickier, what have you. And I think, and there was a couple quotes in there from Zach Ertz about Kingsbury that, like, on the one hand, he has this sort of persona of a guy who enjoys life, we'll say. And he and Ertz is like, no, that's completely the opposite. He's the guy getting in here super early in the morning. He's the guy that's crushing tape. And independent of me not knowing that I had this quote from Kingsbury, Ertz, I asked him what's it like? How do you and Cliff discuss anything in the offseason? Do you send him plays? He said you plays? Whatever. He goes, yeah, we do some of that. We mostly talk about life, soccer and family. But I will often text him, hey, where in the world are you? And that's like the thing. He travels a lot, but when he's not on vacation, he is grinding tape. And the fact that we know Jayden's an early morning guy too, it puts these two guys in real lockstep. And Cliff said that the time they had together last year in the morning before anybody gets there really worked for them in terms of getting a feel for the week ahead, what one of them likes, what they don't like, etc. And so I just think that all that sort of work, again, I'm not, he's not splitting the atom, but in the context of like sort of how people may perceive him, he is a real grinder. And that was part of my takeaway for the story.
Did he share with you what time he normally gets into the facility?
Well, Ertz said like 3. I don't know that it's 3, but Jayden is, we've heard Jayden, I don't even know, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. And Kingsbury seems to be in there with him. He said to me, I don't know if I just made the story, but he said to me, hey, basically Jayden tells me what time we're going to start in a given day. So he's there pretty early. I think that's, again, this is what they do, but and I think sometimes we make too big of a deal about these guys, working really late or getting in too early. But the larger point is he is doing what he can to help get this thing going. He also talked about the fact that when he was a player, now obviously he had a really good college career at Texas Tech, set all kinds of records at the school and national records and things like that. But he ends up being a 6th-round pick, only plays in 1 NFL game in his career. And he said that to me that his drive as a coach stems from the fact that he has regrets as a player, that he doesn't think he put in enough time, that he wasn't as focused enough, maybe living, burning the midnight oil, but not in football terms, but in other ways. And so from that, he's like, I don't want that. I don't want to have those regrets anymore. And that's why he puts in this extra time. So yeah, it's an interesting look at a guy who, again, he's, comes across as a very cool guy. Riz is a term, right? Kids say Riz, people have Riz. He's one of those guys. So,
I think the term now is aura, but Cliff definitely,
sure.
he aura farms for sure. I mean, I see him standing out there in the long black sleeves, long black pants, even if it's 90 degrees out there. He definitely out there aura farming. So when you look at this team now versus last year, does it look like Cliff is much more comfortable in terms of some of the stuff working with some of the guys? Obviously, he's comfortable with Jayden, but there are some new faces on the team this year.
Yeah, look, I look. Did any of us see what was going to happen last year? I don't even just mean the 12-5 in the NFC Championship. I mean 3 different games where they didn't punt or turn the ball over. That just doesn't happen at all, right? And nobody saw that happening. So it's hard to say, watching what we're seeing, especially no Terry, no tackling, that, or do things look different? But look, in general, the players seem to be in a pretty good space when it comes to how they're feeling about things. But time will tell. I don't even think we're going to see much in these preseason games. One, because of the starters, I don't know how much they'll play at all, and then they're not going to game plan at all for these things. So everything seems good, but the difference between winning and losing this league is pretty minuscule. So I can't sit here and say, boy, they look so much better than they did last year, or he looks more comfortable. But that's what they say. That Jayden, he's even said in the article that he thinks Jayden, you can see it's moving faster. He feels more comfortable, and he thinks Jayden's in for a big leap this year. Obviously, if that's true, then that's pretty insane.
Watch out.
Yeah, right. So Jayden has looked good. I think he and Cliff continue to work well together. And then the rest of it, we'll see. If there's no Terry, what does that mean? Again, I assume Terry will be back, but who knows at this point? And without that, their receiver depth is pretty thin, so they're going to need that. And even when Terry, let's just say Terry is back in a week or so, is he ready to go? There's always that concern a guy's going to be out, have injuries. If that happens, what does that mean for the offense? So there's a lot of variables here, but yeah, I mean, I think that the Kingsbury offense in year 2 with Jayden, I think should be a step up because they now both know each other a lot better and what this team can do.
So the first unofficial depth chart comes out today. Terry will not be on that because he's on the PUP list, correct?
I would presume that would be the case, yes.
So who are you anticipating if Debo is lined up at wide receiver 1, and then maybe because Noah Brown is not on the PUP list, so he could still make the depth chart. If he's at wide receiver 2, who is that next wide receiver that would be presumably wide receiver 4 when Terry's here, but might show up as wide receiver 3 on the unofficial depth chart?
Yeah. Well, and just first for anybody who's listening, this unofficial depth chart is more unofficial than even that title suggests. I mean, I don't even definitively know that a coach is putting this together. But okay, that aside, if it were me, if you said, okay, week 1 is here, Terry's not available, who's opposite? Noah Brown. I kind of feel like it might be Michael Gallup. He's obviously a been there, done that veteran, very established. He's looked better. I think as the summer has gone on, he didn't play a ton back in OTA minicamp, but I think he would be the guy you'd feel most comfortable with. Now, Jalen Lane has looked very good, but he's often also running out of the slot a lot where Debo is. So they might try to find ways to get both of them out there together. But at the same time, if you want a true outside receiver, it would be Gallup. The irony is if Terry is back, I don't even know that Gallup is definitely on my 53 because he doesn't play special teams. And if he's not one of my top 4 receivers, do I want that on my roster? I don't know that you do. So it's an interesting world where he could be in my head, possibly the guy who's listed as a starter in his depth chart and simultaneously a guy who's definitely on the bubble, assuming Terry's back sooner than later.
Who is more in jeopardy of losing a roster spot in year number 2, Luke McCaffrey or Ben Sinnott?
Flat out not be on the roster?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would say McCaffrey. I mean, we got Cliff Kingsbury today, and I asked about Luke, his progression, and he said, "Hey, he's more comfortable." He said all the right things. Again, they're the ones watching the practice tape. They see what's going on. He's been relatively quiet though, in terms of what we can see out there. He's had a couple catches here and there, but relatively quiet. Now maybe he's getting wide open all the time. The ball's just not finding him, but I'm not seeing that. Like today when Trey Amos had his pass break up down the sideline, he was guarding McCaffrey. They were stride for stride. Amos at the last second turns his head and knocks the ball away. But I'm not seeing McCaffrey get tons of separation. So, if you made me pick between those guys, I would pick McCaffrey. I imagine they both are fine. But yeah, I haven't seen the obvious improvement, but that's, again, we're not seeing the tape and the subtle things that may be happening that they're pleased with because this is a guy that was a quarterback in college until the last couple of years. So he's still having to learn the position to an extent, but I'm sure they're also going to bet on those bloodlines and, he's an athletic guy. So there's a lot to work with, but to me, it's been a little quiet.
How did Trey Amos look today?
Yeah, again, I mean, he picked off one pass to Jayden. I don't think it was the best pass, but he picked it off. And then, like I said, he knocked that ball away from McCaffrey. He's, I've had him as the starting 2 opposite Lattimore this whole time, and I don't see anything that would make me change my mind on that. He's confident. He's got good size, good speed. He certainly looks like he's a guy who's been out there for a while. So I think he's been a pleasant surprise. He's just building off of what we saw earlier in the spring. And it's a great sign. It is wild to me that cornerback room of last year was arguably the worst position group this team had going into the year. And last year, and then this year, you could make an argument if Lattimore is healthy, which he is now, that this might be the deepest group on the roster. It's an incredible difference what a year's made.
Is that cornerback room the room that you are most excited to see go up against another team?
Well, probably the line play, both sides. I mean, yeah, certainly the corners would be fun to watch. But again, I don't know how much we're going to see out of the starters. But at least with the line play and on defense, they have so many guys. Like is Von Miller going to do anything in New England? Like, I doubt it. But are we going to see, does Johnny Newton play? Yeah, I think there's a reasonable chance that happens. Jacob Martin, maybe, even like Javon Kinlaw, we'll see. But I think that group, there's a lot of guys, they're still lacking that sort of stud player unless Deron Payne, it looks like 2022 Deron Payne, but they've got a lot of depth. They obviously think they got bigger, and that size is going to help them against the run. So I am sort of anxious to see what they look like against another offensive line. And then, see that for Washington, Josh Connerly, getting him out there. Again, I doubt we see Laramie Tunsil, and we may not see Tyler Biotish either, but, we're, right now without Cosme, if Brandon Coleman's dinged up, we got to look at their depth also. So I think seeing the line play to me is always a really interesting deal when you go up against another team.
Ben, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy the trip up to Foxborough, and I'm sure Kevin will have you on at least twice more this week.
Yep, sounds like a plan all the way around. Thanks, Denton.
That is Ben Standig, good enough to join us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin. You can find all of Ben's work on his Twitter at Ben Standig, his Substack link, and then links to his podcast as well, Last Man Standing, which is available wherever it is that you get your podcast. He wrote that really good piece on Cliff Kingsbury that we talked about. So I was really glad to have Ben jump on here to discuss that. We'll talk a little bit about the projected unofficial roster that is to come out. Brian Diardo is going to join us in 15 minutes. Plus, I got a little bit of news. So we'll do some Denton's Daily News when we return. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in on the Team 980. It's Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, going to be with us here in about 10 minutes, get his thoughts around the NFL. And, Brian's a historian, so we will get his thoughts on Washington coming back to RFK. Before we get there, though, I have a little bit of news. So, Max, let's get to some Denton's Daily News. So this weekend was a big pro wrestling weekend, Max.
It was.
Which means it was a big pro wrestling weekend for your boy. Now, I couldn't watch the first night of SummerSlam live because I was at a wedding. I could watch the second night of SummerSlam, and it started at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which is very nice for someone that has to wake up at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time because it ended by 10.
Speaking of weddings,
stay up for it.
I got one coming up in late September, and it is a loaded sports week. No. It's a loaded sports week.
Fall wedding.
I know.
Can't do it.
I know.
Can't do it. What is the relation of you to the person?
Very close family friend. Grew up with this person, and the whole group will be going. Now, we are close enough that I can ask through the family if there are going to be televisions or if the phones need to be charged. I don't know how disrespectful that is.
I mean, at the reception, everything is fair game.
Which is what I figured.
During the ceremony, put it up.
Yeah,
but at the reception, everything is fair game.
That's what I thought.
Because you're not. Yeah. Are you a dancer?
It depends. If the drinks are flowing and I'm having a good time, hell yeah.
Is it an open bar?
I believe it will be.
It was mocktails at the wedding on Saturday for me. I was not aware of that beforehand. I drove, so it's not like I was going to get crazy anyway.
But still,
But the mocktails were good. I just wasn't. But maybe it was on the website. But here's the thing. This was one of my wife's friends. So it was like, hey, you are giving me all the information. I didn't have the website link. I didn't have anything. So it was like, you're giving me the information. And I don't know if she just read it wrong or if it just wasn't on the website. But regardless, I did not know that until they released us from the ceremony. And they said mocktails are available. And I was like, was that with an M or with a C? And it was with an M. They were good. They were good, though.
Still, when you're expecting one, you get the other. It's a quick adjustment on the fly. You got to retool and mentally lock in for the next few hours. Yeah,
that it was. So SummerSlam was this weekend. Seth Rollins cashes in on CM Punk, which was awesome. Jelly Roll wrestled a match, and it was revealed that Jelly Roll was under 300 pounds for the first time since 6th grade.
Hell yeah, good for him.
Well, that you are a better man than I am, because my first reaction was you were 300 pounds at 6th grade. Is there infrastructure in public schools to be able to support a 300-pound human in 6th grade?
Listen, while the words "good for him" were coming out of my mouth, that was also running through my head.
You just took the positive route first. The biggest news, though, was that Brock Lesnar returned last night, and that was a decision.
Certainly was.
From the WWE. Brock Lesnar was named in the Vince McMahon sex trafficking lawsuit as a recipient of a trafficked individual. Not great.
Not very good.
So Brock Lesnar came back, and it just happened to coincide. Purely coincidental, Max. This was 100% coincidence and not planned in advance.
I'm sure.
WWE decided they're not going to do any post-game media availability like they have done for every single other press event because they knew Triple H did not want to take questions on the returning Brock Lesnar. Now, if you're going to let Brock Lesnar return, if you wanted Brock Lesnar to return, more power to you. I didn't really want to see him. There's not a whole lot of matches with Brock Lesnar that I care to see in 2025. But if you want him to return, sick. That's good for you. But you damn sure better be able to answer questions about it if you're going to bring him back, understanding the controversy. You can't take the approach of controversy sells and then not decide to take questions about the controversy that you are hoping is going to sell, which, by the way, it's not like they needed it to sell. They've been doing really, really good. How do I know this? Because at every single other press event that they have had, they've told us how good every single show is doing this year. So they didn't need Brock Lesnar. They decided to take Brock Lesnar back. And by the way, Brock Lesnar has a man bun now. Yuck. Ew. Wouldn't tell it to his face. Would not tell him that to his face. But I'm not looking at his face. That man bun looks bad for Brock Lesnar. Makes his head shape look really weird.
Denton, I think you could outrun Brock Lesnar.
I don't know that I could, actually. That dude's a freak.
He'd get tired too quick. You're training for a marathon, buddy.
Half marathon. If it was a real marathon, maybe I would have it.
More training than Brock's doing. More cardio than Brock's doing.
More cardio,
that's for
you
damn
would think.
Sure.
So they brought him back, and it's just, I don't know. If they're going to do this John Cena thing where John Cena gets to pick his opponents, which Triple H said after the after the show, which again, I was like, really? You're going to put this on John Cena? Like, you're not the one in charge of everything. If John Cena is going to pick his opponents, can I at least get a John Cena AJ Styles match? That's all I'm asking for. I want to see that one ran back one more time
for the fans.
And that does it for the amount of pro wrestling that we are going to speak on the Kevin Sheehan show. What do people turn the dial on quicker? Pro wrestling talk or Washington Wizards talk? Poll question. Not actually, though. That would anger the Wizards.
That pits two of our 980 shows against each other.
Yeah, that would anger the Wizards very much if we did that. So we're not going to do that, but, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Some other stuff. ESPN is taking over Red Zone, which is a decision. I don't know how I feel about this. ESPN is getting NBA on TNT, or inside the NBA, rather, because they're not going to brand it NBA on TNT on ESPN. That's a mouthful. They're getting inside the NBA, and now they're getting Red Zone. I can't anticipate they're going to make a ton of changes. I think it's more just owning the rights to it so that they can now profit off of it. This might be, they've done a lot of deals in the past because they're getting Rich Eisen back on ESPN radio, but I haven't seen anything that suggests Rich Eisen is leaving the NFL network. So a lot of these companies are just getting in bed with one another in a way that they had not done in previous years. I don't know how many people care about like industry politics.
Well, like trust busting doesn't mean anything anymore. So.
It doesn't. But adding Red Zone to ESPN does at least open the gate for like a Stephen A. Smith appearance. And I think that's what most of us are afraid of.
Correct.
I'm not a Stephen A. Smith guy. I understand if you are a Stephen A. Smith guy, like if that's your approach to sports media, I get it. I don't need to see him everywhere. And Scott Hansen does a really good job with NFL Red Zone. I don't need to see any other ESPN guy on NFL Red Zone. No, I don't need to see any other ESPN guy on NBA on TNT.
Keep Pat far away from
I'm terrified of them screwing with it and making it their own little spin. I don't want to see that. So I don't need that sort of stuff to corrupt something that is very, very good. I like that ESPN is trying to position themselves back as the world leader, but I don't need them corrupting good things so they can stroke their little ego and position themselves as the world leader. And finally, MLB Speedway Classic was this weekend. It was on Saturday. It was a baseball game that was played in Bristol, right at the Speedway. They were going to get 90,000 people in there. The game ended up being a disaster.
It was supposed to be Saturday. The game ended up being Sunday.
The game was Sunday because of the rain that kept postponing it, and then they only played an inning and suspended it to Sunday. But in the process of that, they lost or they ran out of concessions.
Yeah.
Which means if you saw these on Twitter, they were selling hot dogs with no bun. I have so many questions.
Well, the other one's a little bit more egregious, I feel like. Nachos with no cheese. They're just selling you tortilla chips.
They're selling, yeah. I mean, $6 for Tostitos is expensive if you're not getting a full bag of Tostitos, which is effectively what it is, just maybe lower branded Tostitos. I still happen to think that the hot dogs with no buns is a little bit more egregious because first and foremost, how do you eat it? How?
Great point. You eat it like you eat it like how you eat a banana. If you want to, you just break off a piece.
There's a zero,
and then just pop.
But here's the thing. It's very difficult to break off a hot dog. At least with a banana, the texture of the banana is a lot easier to break. The hot dog is not. So how are you eating it?
Grip it and rip it, man. There's nothing else you can do.
Look, if you're gripping and ripping on a Clizzy, more power to you. I will empower you in your decision-making. That's not how I'm doing it. I just don't understand also, like if the nacho cheese and the nachos, I can understand an avenue as to how they ran out. You do a little too much cheese on a little too many nachos, then all of a sudden you have a lot more chips and a lot less cheese, right? That one makes sense. How do you run out of buns and hot dogs?
Staff.
Like you have a finite number of hot dogs and you would think you have the exact same number of buns for the hot dogs. Unless someone was double bunning a hot dog, which feels like way too many carbs, I don't know how you run out of that. And then if you are in line and you see somebody get a hot dog with no bun, why on God's green earth would you then get up to the window and say, I would also like a hot dog with no bun? It's quite literally, in every sense of the word, Max, a raw dog. And people were sitting there paying a lot of money.
Well, a cooked raw dog, but yes.
It is a cooked raw dog, but you got to raw dog that hot dog. And I don't want to do any raw dogging of a hot dog in the year of our Lord 2025 or any year for that matter. I ain't no Joey Chestnut. I ain't just taking that wiener to the dome. Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, comes your way next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin.
Well, Denton goes and takes a wiener to the dome. Commanders, camp injury updates. Deebo Samuel is active today. He practiced with a jammed finger. Brandon Coleman out today with battling a leg injury. Dan Quinn says that they are not ruling out Sam Cosby's status for week 1. And Terry McLaurin remains on the PUP list with an ankle injury. Over the weekend, Luka Doncic signed a 3-year extension with the LA Lakers worth $165 million as LA looks towards the future without LeBron James. Nats, they get smoked in a weekend series versus the Brewers. Milwaukee sets a new team record for most hits in a series with 56. They also tied the team record for the third most runs scored in a 3-game span in franchise history with 38. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980 at the Denton Day on Twitter. Let's go around the NFL. helping us do that. Our guy, Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, is good enough to jump on here with us. You can find him on Twitter at Brian Diardo. Brian, first and foremost, man, hope you've had yourself a good summer. I always love catching up with you. I'm curious your perspective, one that is a little bit more national, as to what is going on here locally with the Washington Commanders and Terry McLaurin. How have you viewed this situation?
Well, hey, Denton, it's good to be on with you. Very surprising, to be honest. And, you know, I think when you know, Terry signed his initial contract a couple of years ago, I was kind of surprised because I thought it was a very team-friendly deal. Obviously, this time I'm wondering if he feels like, you know, he did that first contract, maybe a showing of good faith to the organization, and now this time he wants to get paid. Like that's potentially my outside observation of it. I remain confident that something's going to get done. I think, and you know, I think Dan Quinn said this. I think even Jerry Jones said this regarding the Micah Parsons situation, that these now trade requests, that's just kind of part of the escalating, you know, business as far as trying to negotiate contracts. It just seems like that's, instead of now players say that, you automatically start writing down your 5 teams they might be traded to. Again, I just think now that's kind of par for the course when negotiations take as long as they have for those 2 individuals. And we saw T. Higgins do that 2 off seasons in a row until he signed with Cincinnati. We're seeing Trey Hendrickson do that now with the Bengals. But as far as McLaurin and Washington, and I think this is why maybe the contract situation is dragged on in Washington more than most people expected. I think Terry knows that the Washington needs him. I mean, I know they got Deebo Samuel, and they still have other weapons around Jayden Daniels, but like, he was their main guy last year. He was their number 1. He will still be their number 1. I just think he's trying to get the best deal for himself that he possibly can, because, you know, now he's around 30 years of age. This is the probably, and most highly likely, his last big contract, right? His last chance to really strike. And as I alluded to earlier, he didn't really push for a record-setting deal the first time out. And as far as what he should get, you know, I think, you know, there's 9 receivers right now that are making at least $30 million annually. I think I'm assuming he wants to be included in that, which is very doable. And I think there's 6 receivers now that have contracts that have at least $50 million guaranteed. I think he wants to be the 7th. So I think, you know, if I'm Washington and I, you know, have those 2 things included in the contract, I think that would be a very suitable and agreeable contract. But again, I don't think anybody knows exactly what Terry wants. And I think, you know, if he's asking to be the highest paid receiver, then I think that's when issues could arise.
Yeah, if he's asking for Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase money, I think it's a problem. But if it's $30 million, they need to get to $30 million and get him on the field, because you are right. I've been out there in practice, outside of Deebo Samuel, the receivers are, it's a very bare cupboard. There are bodies there, but it's a very bare cupboard in terms of guys that can separate off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I know that they lost a couple of weapons, you know, this offseason. Obviously, they were able to keep their main guys in place, and they also got, as we all know, they got Deebo Samuel. But as you alluded to, and as we all know, I mean, like Zacchaeus, I thought was kind of a guy that they might try to hang on to. I thought he made some clutch catches for them last season. Now without him, yeah, I mean, they're going to need, and again, for any young quarterback, and hey, I grew up in the '90s with the Steelers with Cordell Stewart, and I saw what happened when you keep. You know, the number one thing you can't do to a young quarterback is change coordinators and keep changing his personnel. So you know, they still have Kingsbury, which is awesome. He obviously wants to stay there, even though I think he does have dreams of being a head coach again. But you need to keep his personnel. You know, you still have Zach Ertz, which is great. You brought in Deebo Samuel. You still have a solid but not great running game. You've got to keep that number 1 receiver. And again, I think that's why there's this stalemate, because, you know, Terry knows that they're not going to let him go, and they know they're not going to let him go, right? He's still under contract. So I think this could still drag out a little bit longer, but I wouldn't be surprised if this got settled at any point. But as we both said, I think, again, you know, you give him, you make him, you know, one of the 10 guys that are making $30 million, one of 7 that are making over $50 million guaranteed. Because as good as Terry is, and we all know that he's great, you know, and I know his touchdown production's gone up, you know, as far as totality of statistics, he is behind Justin Jefferson. He is behind Jamar Chase. Like, you know, but I think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league, 100%, and that's how he should be paid.
How big of a deal is it that RFK is going to be used for the new stadium site?
I love it. You know, I think in general, this new stadium has been overdue. I think that's going to continue to invigorate life into that organization. And I think it's really cool that it's happening at a time when the Washington franchise is coming back, right? I think that it's very appropriate that this is the time now. And I love that the RFK name is going to remain synonymous with the stadium. And I just in general love the return to the history of this organization. And it's interesting because they're similar to the Raiders in that they, each franchise has won 3 Super Bowls, but both now have been over 30 years old. And in the Raiders case, the last one was over 40 years ago. So, but there is that history there. And I love that they're retiring Art Monk's number this year. And they've really done this embracing of the past. And obviously now with the Super Bowl era uniforms they're unveiling too this year, I just think, and that's kind of the bummer with the McLaurin thing, right? Like everything's good for Washington, all the momentum. And we haven't even discussed the Von Miller signing because, I was shocked, to be honest, that he was still around this late. So you can get, a future Hall of Fame pass rusher who's top 10 all-time in career sacks. Not too shabby. So, I think there's a lot of positive things for Washington. As soon as they get this McLaurin deal done, it just seems like, once they get that done, then I think then every Washington fan can exhale and just really get ready for the season.
So from a national perspective, we got Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, here with us on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in. From a national perspective, is there one particular quarterback you are most excited to watch in 2025?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I mean, obviously, I want to see the continued development and growth of Jayden Daniels. I think, we're keeping it local. I'll get to some other guys, but I think for me with Daniels, it's kind of even going back. I mean, obviously, he remained mostly healthy through the season. He had some nicks like any quarterback's going to have, but I think for him, it's the health standpoint, and I do think he did an awesome job of kind of marrying the run and the pass. He didn't abuse his ability as a runner. And what I mean by that is he didn't lean on it too much where he's taking too many shots. I think he did get hit a little more than he should have last year. I mean, that game when he touchdown pass against the Bengals was amazing, but he took a nasty lick on that throw, which made the throw incredible, but you don't want to see a guy, your quarterback taking shots like that. So, to me, I think, and I think now the bar for him, as we all know, is going to be super high now. I mean, he's not going to sneak up on anybody. And, you do see some quarterbacks in their second seasons not regress, but things are maybe a little harder for them and more challenging than they were in year 2. So I'm kind of interested to see how he continues to develop, how that offense continues to develop. I wish they would have gotten a stronger running game for him. Like, it's not a bad running game at all with Eckler and Robinson, but and I know it did well against Detroit in the playoffs, but that I think was the main difference, one of the main differences between them and Philadelphia. So other quarterbacks, I mean, Joe Burrow obviously is, I think he is my front runner for MVP, a very early MVP pick. I think, last year he would have won it if the Bengals were better than 9-8. And I think if he's healthy, they signed, he got Gesicki signed as tight end because basically they just revolve tight ends every year. That's what the Bengals do. They don't invest in that position. Then they got Jamar Chase re-signed. They got Higgins re-signed. Chase Brown, the running back, is solid. So I like what they can do. And then staying in that division, Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, I was at Steelers training camp a week ago. I'll just say this, interesting. There's flashes of potential there. I would draft DK Metcalf for your fantasy team because he's going to get fed the way that Rodgers used to feed Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. But the defense has been eating them alive in 7 shots, which is their best of 7 scrimmage from the 2-yard line. Their defense has really had their way with the Steelers offense. And I think, as we all know, Rodgers didn't sign until, just about minicamp. He didn't do anything at minicamp. So last week in training camp, or 2 weeks ago rather, was his first time ever running with the Steelers offense. So there's some growing pains there. But I do think there's a potential for that offense to be really good for Rodgers to kind of milk out whatever talent's left in that arm and in that body. But I think at the beginning it's going to be tough because they just don't have that continuity yet.
Who signs a contract first, Michael Parsons or Terry?
Terry's going to sign first. I think this Dallas thing is going to stretch out, but I do think both get done. I think the Hendrickson thing might not get done, but I think he's going to play. He knows he has no leverage. He's going to have to play on that contract. 31 years old, sitting out a year, that's only going to hurt your market value for next year. But I do think Parsons gets done, and I do think McLaurin gets done. I think the issue with Parsons is I think he's going for the top. And what I mean by that is he's going to beat TJ Watt. He wants to be along with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett as the highest paid non-quarterbacks in football. And those are astronomically high numbers. Watt's making $41 million annually. Garrett's making $40 million annually. I just don't see how Dallas has the space to get that done. So that could play out a little bit longer. I think Terry, I'm predicting that gets done within the week. I don't see this bleeding into next week.
Both you, me, my production staff, well, not Brian. Brian's a Cowboy fan, but all of our most of our production staff, we all are in agreement with you on that one. Real quickly, I'll get you out of here on this one. If this is too early, I apologize. But if you started looking at teams that you think can win this whole thing,
I got a dark horse for you. I
Okay.
think Green Bay is my dark horse because not much of a dark horse. They made the playoffs the last couple of years. I think if Love is healthy and those receivers can emerge, their younger receivers can emerge. I think, they've got a really, really good running game with Jacobs. I think Detroit's window may have already closed. Minnesota has those question marks at quarterback, and Chicago, there's too many question marks. So I think they can win that division. And if they can win that division, they get the home playoff game and anything can happen. So I don't know if I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl, but I think if there's one dark horse, if you want to place a bet on a Super Bowl winner this year, but you don't want to take the obvious like Philadelphia or someone like that or Kansas City, they would kind of be my dark horse to maybe make some noise in the playoffs and possibly get to the Super Bowl.
I like it. I got them winning their division, so I'm on the same general path that you are. Brian, I appreciate the time as always, my friend. It's always fun.
Thanks, Denton. Likewise.
That is Brian Diardo, CBS Sports. He was good enough to join us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin. Kevin will be back tomorrow, so you'll get his thoughts on this Terry McLaurin saga that has unfolded since he has been gone. But speaking of the saga that has been unfolding, Diana Rossini, who we played a report from her last week, she was on the Bill Simmons podcast. I wanted to get this in before we got out of Dodge here. So this is Diana Rossini with Bill Simmons. It's a little speculative, but here's her thoughts on Josh Harris and his involvement in the Terry McLaurin extension.
Let's say you're an owner like Josh Harris, right? Like, who's got experience with bad deals. That's got to be hard for him to go, all right, I'm just going to let Adam Peters do this. There's no way. Of course he's going to influence it. Especially if they've been down that road before and they've made those mistakes. They're not going to allow some new GM making those mistakes, which is why I'm curious to see how the Terry McLaurin thing shapes out, because the owners involved in that. That's not just Adam Peters. No way.
I'm not worried about that one.
So that's Diana Rossini suggesting that Josh Harris is actually involved in these conversations. Now, to be clear, this is not a report. This is her basing stuff off of Philadelphia with the 76ers. Because It's not like they've signed a bunch of bad contracts here in Washington. I think what she's alluding to is like a James Harden contract, a Paul George contract, and a Joel Embiid contract. Now the Joel Embiid is hurt.
His knee might be pulled pork.
So to a degree, I can understand the logic that she is using. I don't happen to believe that that Josh Harris is looking at Adam Peters as this new general manager that doesn't know how to operate.
Yeah.
I think the reason
you picked him if you
exactly. You don't hire Adam Peters and praise his work in San Francisco and praise his work in Denver and praise his work in New England, all organizations that at the time where he was there were looked at as very well-run organizations and organizations that operated from a very smart perspective. You don't hire him to then basically come in there and Wally Pip him because of a contract situation. Now, does Josh Harris have some sort of involvement in it? I'm sure he does. He is the one that is ultimately signing the check, and he is the one that is going to be putting the money in escrow and then ultimately in the pocket of Terry. So I'm sure there is a limit or a cap where Josh Harris is saying, hey, don't go higher than this, whatever that number is. Don't go higher than this particular number. But I can't imagine he is sitting in negotiation rooms and saying, no, we don't like this, or maybe we want to go more in this direction. That is a Dan move. I can't imagine that is a Josh Harris move. I'm of the belief that this is a lot more Adam Peters and maybe Lance Newmark than it is Josh Harris just sitting in there and saying, well, Joel Embiid didn't work out for me in Philadelphia, so therefore I'm not going to give Terry whatever X amount of dollars is that Terry is asking for. I want this saga to be done with. I've had a great time sitting in for Kevin. I wanted to talk some other stuff, but the Terry stuff was the most important stuff throughout the course of that week. And then, the trade request that came on Thursday night that just took over our show on Friday, all of that had to be addressed. That's it for me. Chris Russell comes your way next. Kevin is back in the big chair tomorrow, so you will get his take on a lot of the stuff that he missed while he was gone on vacation. Hit me up on Twitter at the Denton Day. Rooster on 980 next.